Chapter 560. After obtaining the complete space tome, Jun Xiaoyaro relaxed a little. He turned his head again and looked at the expressionless little rock king with a numb expression. He shook his head inwardly. Looks like you still failed. After sighing, Jun Xiaoyaro activated the power of his triple life primordial spirit and poured it into the golden-winged rock's mind. He discovered that there was a golden seed in the golden-winged rock's primordial spirit. It must be the seed that Jade Fozi had planted with his expiation technique. However, now that Jade Fozi was dead, the seed no longer had any binding power. Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit stirred slightly and destroyed the seed. The golden-winged rock's body trembled, and his numb eyes gradually regained some luster. As if awakened from a dream, he looked at Jun Xiaoyaro in front of him and recalled what had happened before. Thank you, Son of God, for saving me. It looks like I still failed. The golden-winged rock looked ashamed. It's all right. You don't have to worry about Jade Fozi anymore. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. Could it be? The golden-winged rock's eyes widened. The golden-winged rock was filled with emotions after learning that Jun Xiaoyaro had casually killed Jade Fozi and the other two giants. He was truly impressed by Jun Xiaoyaro. Next, Jun Xiaoyao's gaze fell on the little girl who had taken the form of the immortal Marrow King. He slowly approached the little lowly, and his nose caught a whiff of a fragrance that made one's pores open. So it really is the ginseng fruit? Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. Little brother, don't eat me. I don't taste good. The little girl shrank back, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. If this scene was seen by some bronze refining warlocks with certain fetishes, they would probably go crazy and turn into wolves. Even if they didn't have such fetishes, the immortal Marrow King was still very attractive to ordinary cultivators. Not to mention a transformed immortal Marrow King. How should I deal with it? Should I refine the arms first, the legs, or stew it in a pot? Jun Xiaoyaro wondered if he should throw the immortal Marrow King into the heaven and earth furnace to refine it. The little girl was so frightened that she burst into tears. Soybean-sized tears flowed out of her big eyes. Hey! Jun Xiaoyaro raised his eyebrows and wiped the tears on the little girl's face and carefully studied her. The little girl was stunned. She never thought that Jun Xiaoyaro would suddenly wipe her tears so gently. Jun Xiaoyao's attention, however, was focused on the tears. Immortal Marrow King's tears? Jun Xiaoyaro was astonished. This little Lolita's entire body was a treasure. And her tears were all rare immortal Marrow King's tears. In that case, Jun Xiaoyaro had a bold conjecture. The other liquids that the little girl shed might also be rare treasures. For a moment, Jun Xiaoyaro hesitated. Killing the goose that lays the golden eggs could only be used for a while. But raising chickens to lay eggs could be used forever. As if sensing the hesitation in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes, the little girl's survival instincts exploded. She hurriedly shouted, "Little brother is so good-looking and handsome. You can't be a bad person, right? Heh. Although you've just been born, it seems that you're not stupid. You're telling the truth." Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. He decided not to deal with the little girl now. Anyway, he had just condensed his fourth strand of immortal qi. He was not in a hurry to condense his fifth strand of immortal qi. Sensing that the dangerous look in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes had disappeared, the little girl heaved a sigh of relief. However, she blinked and said with a longing look, "Little brother." Earlier, that cauldron, Jun Xiaoyaro was slightly stunned. Then, he took out the myriad qi cauldron. When she saw the myriad qi rolling in the myriad qi cauldron, the little girl's face was filled with longing. "You want the myriad qi?" Jun Xiaoyaro asked. The little girl hurriedly nodded her little head. Jun Xiaoyaro pondered and then separated a strand of myriad qi. What happened next, however, left even Jun Xiaoyaro dumbfounded. This little lowly actually opened her small cherry mouth and swallowed the myriad origin qi in one gulp. That works. Jun Xiaoyaro was really surprised. Although the myriad qi was a rare treasure, it was not something that anyone could absorb. Ordinary geniuses could not even withstand a strand of myriad qi. Their bodies would be crushed. Jun Xiaoyaro was able to use the myriad qi to temper his body because he had the sacred body of the ancients and the immortal body of Deluo. However, the little girl in front of him swallowed the myriad qi. Can you give me a little more? I'm not full. The little girl twisted her fingers and said embarrassedly. Interesting. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes showed a hint of curiosity. It felt as if he had found a new toy. He once again split out a few strands of myriad qi, and the little loli did not reject them, swallowing them all into her little stomach. Her aura began to rise. Her entire body seemed to have become more solid and pure. If I continue to cultivate her, can I really cultivate a little sacred spirit? Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. A sacred spirit formed from divine gold was an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with great emperors and emperors of the ancients. The level of the king of immortal marrow was actually not inferior to divine gold. If the little girl really had such potential, it would be a waste to refine her directly. Should I treat her as food and kill her after she's fattened up? Or should I keep her as a pet and cultivate her into a little sacred spirit in the future? Jun Xiaoyaro thought. Then, he asked, "What is your name?" I don't have a name," the little girl said weakly. "Since you're the king of immortal marrow in human form, I'll call you Xiaoxian. Jun Xiaoyaro said casually. The cute little girl Xiaoxian was a good name. Xiaoxian was pleasantly surprised. At least this meant that Jun Xiaoyaro would not eat her for the time being. Little Rock King, look after her. I have something to do, Jun Xiaoyaro said to the golden-winged rock. Could it be? Son of God, you want to? The golden-winged rock seemed to have thought of something. His eyes widened in disbelief. Could it be that Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to challenge the 19th level of the Infernal Star again? I also want to see what the 19th level of the Infernal Star looks like, Jun Xiaoyaro said with a smile. The golden-winged rock was truly shocked. Ordinary people would stay away from any of the Infernal Star's 7 mysteries, not daring to get involved in any of them. But Jun Xiaoyaro knew that there were tigers in the mountains, but he still chose to go there. But what made them speechless was that Jun Xiaoyaro actually came out of the Bronze Immortal Palace. After saying that, Jun Xiaoyaro turned around and continued walking with his hands behind his back. Looking at Jun Xiaoyao's back, the golden-winged rock had a feeling that Jun Xiaoyaro would create another shocking miracle. Chapter 561. At the dojo outside the Infernal Star. Everyone was still in a state of shock from what had just happened. The fall of the 3 overlords was no doubt big news on the Emperor Road. It would cause a stir in the entire Emperor Road. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, was able to easily take out the 3 giants with only 40% of his strength. That would undoubtedly become a hot topic for everyone to talk about. The son of God of the Jun family has completed his mission. It's time for him to come out. Something's not right. Look, is the son of God of the Jun family going deeper? What is he trying to do? Is he going to enter the 19th level of the Infernal Star? The 19th level of the Infernal Star is one of the 7 wonders. It's a forbidden place. Without a doubt, Jun Xiaoyao's actions caused yet another huge commotion in the training hall. No one expected Jun Xiaoyaro to really choose to go deeper. Isn't Master too stubborn? The 9-headed lion was also speechless. Can he pass the 19th level of the Infernal Star? Kong Xian was still in a daze. Jun Xiaoyao's performance had refreshed her understanding of his strength. She did not know if Jun Xiaoyaro could create another miracle. As expected of the son of God of the Jun family. Chong Ming Supreme shook his head and smiled. The reason why he came in person was to see what Jun Xiaoyaro would choose. Now it seemed that Jun Xiaoyaro was still Jun Xiaoyaro. It would be strange if Jun Xiaoyaro did not explore the 19th level of the Infernal Star. The entire dojo was in an uproar. In the depths of the Infernal Star, Jun Xiaoyaro walked with his hands behind his back. Along the way, he encountered many earth demons and heavenly demons. There were even many earth demon emperors and heavenly demon emperors. However, they were all killed by Jun Xiaoyaro. The title of Invincible Saint was not just for show. In this realm, Jun Xiaoyaro was almost invincible. Jun Xiaoyaro even had the ability to fight above his level. Even a Saint King or a Supreme Saint would not be able to defeat Jun Xiaoyaro easily. Finally, Jun Xiaoyaro arrived in front of a large door. The door was mottled and dark, as if it had been watered with blood. An ominous resentment pervaded the air, as if it was the gate to the netherworld. Is this the entrance to the 19th level of Hellstar? Jun Xiaoyaro sized him up. Just the door alone was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Geniuses with weaker Dao hearts would have their minds shaken. If they got close, they would be branded by some mysterious curse power and die in extreme pain and madness. However, Jun Xiaoyao's entire body was shining with immortal light and surging with golden radiance. The evil-repelling power of the sacred body of the ancients was brought to its fullest at that very moment. Jun Xiaoyaro was like a god of endless light, suppressing all evil. Jun Xiaoyaro pushed open the door without hesitation. Jun Xiaoyaro felt the world around him spin as soon as he pushed the door open. He was unable to see anything clearly, as if he had been thrown into a dark universe all of a sudden. After an unknown amount of time. In front of Jun Xiaoyaro, it seemed to have suddenly lit up. There were mountains all around, as if it was the base of a certain force. Senior brother? It's impossible between you and me. You're the one I love. You're the hero who dominated the Emperor Road. All of a sudden, a female voice was heard. In front of Jun Xiaoyaro, a pure and beautiful woman appeared. She looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with disdain in her eyes. Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to say something, but he found that he couldn't say anything. Instead, he heard a voice in his ear. It sounded like him, but at the same time, it didn't sound like him. Junior sister, I'll go to the Emperor Road. I'll prove to you that I have the ability to protect you. Hearing this voice, Jun Xiaoyaro was confused. Did he really say those words himself? How could he be such a bootlicker? Senior brother, I'll wait. The day you become famous in the Emperor Road will be the day I marry you. This senior brother. His gaze was firm. He stepped onto the Emperor Road. Only then did Jun Xiaoyaro realize that he seemed to have become a mass of consciousness living in someone else's body. In other words, Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness gradually merged with that senior brother. What the hell is on the 19th level of the Infernal Star? Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. This was simply strange. It was as if he was sitting in a movie theater and watching someone else's life. Jun Xiaoyaro had thought about all kinds of dangers on the 19th level of the Infernal Star. But he didn't expect it to be so strange. Next, this senior brother resolutely stepped onto the Emperor's Road, filled with conviction. Compared to Jun Xiaoyaro, who was the center of attention and stood above all beings. This senior brother was a little ordinary. He was just an inconspicuous outer disciple from a first-class force. Walking the Emperor Road was no different from walking to his death. As expected. Not long after stepping onto the Emperor Road, this poor senior brother was completely defeated by a genius from a top force. How can an ant like you complete the Emperor Road? Haha, what a joke. The genius stepped on that senior brother's head and stomped it into the ground. Then, his entire head exploded. Jun Xiaoyaro felt very strange. It was as if his head had been stomped to pieces. If it were any other genius, they would definitely go crazy in the face of such a thing. Jun Xiaoyaro, however, found it very novel. At this time, a blood-sobbing voice could be heard. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. Why am I the one who's buried in the Emperor Road? This voice was bone-piercing and filled with tears. He was even able to vaguely sense that his own consciousness seemed to have been infected as well. He seemed to have become that senior brother, with unwillingness and resentment, as if he was going to turn into a demonic consciousness that cursed everything. I see. Is this the test of the 19th level of the Infernal Star? At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro came to a sudden realization. The Infernal Star was rumored to be formed by the accumulated resentment of countless cultivators who were buried on the Emperor Road. The 19th level was the place where the resentment gathered. These resentment wanted to assimilate Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness. In this way, Jun Xiaoyaro would fall into endless madness and stay here forever, becoming a part of the resentment. No wonder those who entered the 19th level of the Infernal Star by chance never came out. Jun Xiaoyaro finally understood. However, this test did not seem too scary now. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was still naive. After the senior brother that his consciousness resided in had his head stomped to pieces. A moment later, Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness recovered again. This time, he became a young man of the monster race. This monster race lineage was persecuted by a powerful force. This young man of the monster race swore to become stronger and protect his lineage. Then, he resolutely stepped onto the Emperor Road in search of the path to become stronger. The result was obvious. He did not make it through many levels before his chest was pierced by a human sky pride. No. I can't accept this. I want to become stronger. I want to protect my clan and my kin. Blood flowed out of the young man's mouth as he screamed in despair. The strong live and the weak die. You think you can protect your own race? The sky pride of the human race snickered in disdain. Ah! I hate you. In the end, the young man of the monster race's body exploded and his primordial spirit shattered. However, the endless resentment and curse power did not dissipate for a long time. This was the truth of the Emperor Road. Except for a few dazzling geniuses like Jun Xiaoyaro. Most of the other cultivators and living beings who stepped onto the Emperor Road were insignificant waves in the ocean. A small wave pounced over and disappeared without a trace. Not even a trace was left behind. The Emperor Road was a pile of bones, and what remained were their bones. Chapter 562. It had to be said that the 19th level of Infernal Star was very strange. It did not have the straightforward danger, but it was subtly driving people crazy. Next, Jun Xiaoyaro seemed to have experienced endless reincarnation. He was a high-spirited young cultivator, but in the end, he was buried in the Emperor Road. He was a young man who wanted to revitalize his family, but he was mercilessly slaughtered in the Emperor Road. He even experienced the infatuation of a woman who stepped onto the Emperor Road to pursue the sky pride she admired. In the end, she did not even get to see the sky pride once until her death. The sky pride did not even know of her existence. Resentment, hatred, and unwillingness, all kinds of negative emotions began to invade Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness like poison. This was the unwillingness of the countless living beings who were buried in the Emperor Road. How could someone be so high and mighty? How could they be the skeletons who paved the road? The power of resentment was very terrifying. Even Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit of 3 lives showed signs of darkening. Mahavirokana. Jun Xiaoyaro activated the Rulai mantra. A panicked Mahavirokana Dharma form appeared, trying to suppress the evil spirits. However, the monstrous resentment was too terrifying. Even Mahavirokana could not suppress it. The 19th level of Infernal Star is indeed dangerous. Although there is no obvious killing intent, it secretly kills people without leaving a trace. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed. No matter how strong one's cultivation was, they would be very vulnerable in the face of this kind of corruption. If they were not careful, their defenses would be broken. Jun Xiaoyaro seemed to have been reincarnated thousands of times. However, only a little more than a month had passed in the outside world. In this more than a month, almost all the Sky Prides who were training in Infernal Star had returned. The entire Infernal Star was about to close. Mu Yuhan, Golden-Winged Rock, and Xiao Xiana, who was transformed from the immortal Marrow King, had also returned. Some of the Sky Prides looked at Xiao Xiana with fiery eyes, but they did not dare to do anything. This was because Xiao Xiana belonged to Jun Xiaoyaro. No one knew if Jun Xiaoyaro could make it out of the 19th level of Hellstar. However, after witnessing Jun Xiaoyao's strength, no one dared to test him again. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives. It's been more than a month, and the son of God of the Jun family still hasn't come out. That's right. I heard that at the end of the 18th stage of the Emperor Road, the Barren Heaven battlefield will open soon. When the time comes, all the Sky Prides will gather there to fight for the seal of proving doctrine and obtain the title of Emperor Road King. The Barren Heaven battlefield is the ultimate training ground on the Huangtian Mystic Realm's Imperial Road. There are endless opportunities there. If I can get the legendary seal of proving the way, I'll be at least a quasi-emperor in the future. If the son of God of the Jun family participates, Even if he doesn't become the king of the Emperor Road, he would at least be able to obtain a seal of proving principles. But looking at the current situation, whether or not the Jun family's son of God will be able to come out is another matter. The Sky Prides in the training hall were all discussing. If they could get a seal of proving the way, it would be extremely beneficial for them to embark on the ultimate ancient path. If they could obtain the title of Emperor Road King, they could almost be said to be the leader of the Huangtian Mystic Realm's Imperial Road. They would have endless glory and honor. With Jun Xiaoyao's current strength and performance, he was one of the most likely people to fight for this honor. But now, more than a month had passed, and the Infernal Star was closed. Jun Xiaoyao did not make any moves at all. If it were not for Jun Xiaoyao's outstanding performance before, many people would even think that Jun Xiaoyao would have been defeated. However, the situation was indeed as some people thought. Jun Xiaoyao's situation was indeed not very good. Previously, he was able to come out of the Bronze Immortal Palace safely because of various factors. The most important factor was the karma between the Bronze Immortal Palace and the ghost-masked woman. Moreover, he had an inexplicable karma with the ghost-masked woman. It was because of this relationship that Jun Xiaoyao could treat the Bronze Immortal Palace as his home. If it were anyone else who entered, even if they were supremes, they would have been killed. But the 19th level of the Infernal Star was different. This incredible place had no karma with Jun Xiaoyao. In other words, Jun Xiaoyao could only rely on himself to get through this level. For the outside world, it was just a short month. But for Jun Xiaoyao, who was deep in the 19th level of the Infernal Star, it felt like thousands of reincarnations. He had possessed countless geniuses who had fallen on the Emperor Road. Each time, he died with endless despair. If it happened once or twice, he might not feel anything. But when a person experienced that kind of endless despair thousands of times, that kind of abyss-like death, no one could guarantee that they would not go crazy. At least, if it were any other geniuses, even if they were supremes, they would not be able to last as long as Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao's invincible heart of the path had been tempered countless times. It would not collapse so easily. But even so, facing this kind of endless torture, even Jun Xiaoyao felt a little tired. This is a torturous level, Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. The power of his primordial spirit began to fade gradually. Layers of pitch-black resentment and sin tainted his primordial spirit. Finally, after going through thousands of reincarnations, Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was almost pure black. At that moment, even Jun Xiaoyao himself was powerless to reverse the situation. Just as Jun Xiaoyao was about to use his last resort and fight to the death, a fragmented ancient talisman suddenly floated into the air. This is. Jun Xiaoyao was stunned for a moment before he recalled what had happened. This was the broken ancient talisman he had taken from Wang Ting in the Bronze Immortal Palace. This broken ancient talisman was engraved with the word chaos, which had the power to protect the primordial spirit. Even if Wang Ting's primordial spirit was destroyed, he could use this to recover. And now, this broken ancient talisman was emitting a faint light again, like a spark in the darkness. As the broken ancient talisman was activated, Jun Xiaoyao vaguely saw a majestic figure gradually appear. A sonorous and powerful voice filled with an incomparably tenacious will sounded in his ears. In the first half of my life, I fought thousands of battles and lost all of them. I didn't win once. After I lost all of them, I turned from a saint to a demon, reversed yin and yang, and reversed life and death. In the second half of my life, I fought thousands of battles and won all of them. I didn't lose once. The deafening voice resounded in Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness. The incomplete ancient talisman also released an immeasurable amount of divine light, illuminating the boundless darkness. Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness was disturbed and woke up like a sleeping lion. These words reminded him of a person who could be called a legend among the emperors. Emperor Ancient Chaos, a great emperor who had suffered thousands of defeats in his life. It could be said that he was an anomaly among the great emperors. The other great emperors had shocked the world since they were born and were surrounded by glory. However, he had risen from nothing and recovered from the wilderness, one step at a time. He didn't win in the first half of his life, and he didn't lose in the second half of his life. Zhang Xiaoyaro had also read about the deeds of Emperor Ancient Chaos in some ancient books. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyao's consciousness shuddered as he glanced at the broken ancient talisman. Looking at the word chaos engraved on the ancient talisman, Zhang Xiaoyaro was finally sure. This broken ancient talisman was the Emperor Ancient Chaos Talisman, the Emperor Ancient Chaos Talisman. Chapter 563. Back in the Bronze Immortal Palace, when he saw this ancient talisman with the word chaos on it, Zhang Xiaoyaro had already guessed that it might have something to do with the legendary ancient Chaos Great Emperor. However, the word chaos alone was not enough to confirm that this ancient talisman was related to the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. After all, it was not uncommon to see experts with the word chaos. But now, this ancient talisman had automatically awakened in this desperate situation, which undoubtedly proved that it belonged to the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. It was the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's imperial weapon, the ancient Chaos Talisman. However, it was rumored that the ancient Chaos Great Emperor had two imperial weapons, one for offense and one for defense. The one for offense was called the ancient Chaos Axe. The one for defense was the ancient Chaos Talisman. It seems that Wang Ting was the protagonist of Heaven and Earth, the Son of Destiny. It was possible for him to obtain the complete inheritance of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor, but I intercepted him halfway. Zhang Xiaoyaro could not help but feel relieved. At this moment, this half of the ancient Chaos Talisman had automatically awakened. It was probably because of the special situation at hand. The ancient Chaos Great Emperor was unyielding throughout his life. He fought against heaven, earth, and fate. However, these losers of the Emperor Road only knew how to curse heaven and earth. These negative emotions were the complete opposite of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's will. Therefore, the ancient Chaos Talisman had been activated. The ancient Chaos Talisman released an infinite amount of divine light, illuminating the darkness. It was as if a majestic figure was holding a giant axe, trying to cut off the endless reincarnation. Zhang Xiaoyaro was also energized. With his own willpower, he might be able to escape from this reincarnation if he fought with his life. However, with the help of the ancient Chaos Talisman, Zhang Xiaoyaro was no doubt more relaxed. Endless resentment is just the clamor of ants. The road to becoming a king is paved with countless corpses. You are only fit to become dead souls and bones, cursing heaven and earth. I, Zhang Xiaoyao, will step over your bones and reach the supreme peak. Zhang Xiaoyao's consciousness said coldly. He did not feel the slightest bit of pity for the living beings and cultivators who had died in the Emperor Road. The strong lived, the weak died. Survival of the fittest. This was the law of the world. What was the use of complaining about heaven and earth and fate? Everyone had their own destiny. Some were born to be kings, some became bandits. Zhang Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, was the one destined to become king. Beneath his feet was destined to be paved with endless corpses. The 19th level of hell? So what? Break for me. Zhang Xiaoyaro let out a clear whistle and his white robe fluttered. His hair, accompanied by the radiance of the ancient Chaos Talisman, the endless reincarnation, it was broken. The ancient chaos was torn. What replaced it was a dark red world that looked like purgatory. Many skeletons, vengeful spirits, dead spirits, and earth demons. Heavenly demon, demon emperor, emperor, god Emperor Road. Zhang Xiaoyaro held the cauldron of myriad qi in one hand and crushed the jade seal with the other. Ancient shackles, was to be broken. Great is time. Unleash his full strength. Ancient Zhang Xiaoyaro pushed the myriad qi cauldron with one hand like a god pushing an ancient star, crushing all obstacles before him. In fact, compared to the previous reincarnation heart refinement stage deal with these existences, it was even easier. Zhang Xiaoyaro could unleash his full strength. How terrifying. A ray of divine light could annihilate an area. A 6 paths of reincarnation fist could easily destroy an earth demon emperor. Zhang Xiaoyaro was unstoppable throughout his journey. Nothing was able to stop him. In the end, Zhang Xiaoyaro entered the depths of the 19th level of Infernal Star. Jun Xiaoyaro found that there were countless red lotus-like flames blooming here. This is Red Lotus Hellfire. Jun Xiaoyaro frowned. Red Lotus Hellfire was a flame formed by the power of sin. What the fire burned was sin and karma. Many geniuses were buried on the Emperor Road. The resentment of countless geniuses formed a vast amount of sin and karma, gathering here. Even a supreme being would tremble if they came here. Once the power of sin and karma touched one's body, it would be difficult to get rid of it as it would implicate oneself. After all, who dared to say that they had not sinned? Who dared to say that they had not been tainted by karma? At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro vaguely felt that the supreme being bone in his chest seemed to be slightly hot. Just as he was about to investigate, the mechanical voice of the system sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching the check-in location. Do you wish to check in? Check in, Jun Xiaoyaro said in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 7-star reward, Sin Immortal Qi. As the system's voice fell, Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly noticed that a dark red immortal qi with endless power of sin and karma had appeared out of thin air in his body. On the surface of the immortal qi, there seemed to be a thin layer of red lotus hellfire. It was the sin immortal qi. There's already a immortal qi. Jun Xiaoyaro was a little speechless. If the other geniuses knew about this, they would be so angry that they would vomit blood. After all, they had worked hard and put in a lot of effort to condense a immortal qi before finally succeeding. As a result, Jun Xiaoyaro was able to get a whiff of mystical aura just by checking in once. This was basically free. Counting the sin immortal qi, Jun Xiaoyaro already had 5 immortal qi in his body unknowingly. This was a very terrifying number. If I could get immortal qi every time I sign in, then I wouldn't have to spend so much effort to condense immortal qi. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. But he was just joking. Sign-in opportunities were randomly refreshed. And it was impossible to get immortal qi every time he signed in. This time, it was an unexpected surprise. So in the future, Jun Xiaoyaro still had to obediently condense immortal qi on his own. With the condensation of the sin immortal qi, the red lotus hellfire and the power of sin here were no longer a threat to Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro continued to go deeper. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Because there was no more path ahead. Instead, there was a wall. It was a wall made up of endless bones and flesh, and it looked very creepy. And in the center of the wall, there was a figure sitting cross-legged. It was a woman in a blood-red dress. Her black hair was also blood-red, and it flowed down like a flowing river of blood. Although her face was beautiful, there were many strange black curse patterns on it. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be flowing with blood and fire, burning with endless red lotus hellfire. How long has it been? Someone else has come here. The strange woman said in a gloomy voice. You are. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm. I, Goddess Eternal Calamity, am in charge of the Sin Tribulation. This is the 19th level of the Infernal Star. Living people can enter but not leave, the woman named Goddess Eternal Calamity said coldly. What she meant was that Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't be able to get out alive. Oh, you can take the life of this son of God. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly. He didn't sense any irresistible pressure from Goddess Eternal Calamity. In other words, Goddess Eternal Calamity was not a top-notch expert. She was more like the spokesperson chosen by the countless cultivators and resentful spirits who had fallen on the Emperor Road. She was in charge of the Sin Tribulation. Mimi reading app, not to mention saints, even supremes can't escape the punishment of the Sin Tribulation. Goddess Eternal Calamity stretched out her hand, and the red lotus hellfire around her turned into entangled fire snakes that rushed toward Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro stood in place with his hands behind his back. He didn't resist at all, and there was even a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. On the surface of his body, dark red sin immortal qi appeared. Chapter 564. The dark red sinful immortal qi was like flowing lava, carrying with it endless sins and tribulations. At the same time, a thin layer of red lotus hellfire curled around it. When Jun Xiaoyaro brought out the sinful immortal qi, the red lotus hellfire turned into a fire snake and landed on him, but it did not cause any ripples. This. Even Goddess Eternal Calamity was stunned. She had never encountered such a situation. Any living being, regardless of their cultivation level, would be affected by her as long as they had karma, tribulations, and sins. But now, the sinful immortal chi on Jun Xiaoyao's body made Goddess Eternal Calamity's eyes flash with surprise. Immortal chi condensed from sins? How is this possible? Goddess Eternal Calamity found it unbelievable. The power of sin was one of the most terrifying forces in the world. All living beings in the world were creating karma. If the world was compared to a furnace, then karma was the flame under the furnace. The three realms were in chaos, like a burning house. Everyone was suffering, and it was terrifying. Even some of the top experts found it difficult to completely eradicate their sins. Moreover, he was just a young genius. The world was like a furnace, and Jun Xiaoyao seemed to be standing outside of it. This was why Goddess Eternal Calamity found it unbelievable. It seems that your means are useless against me. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was as calm as water. Goddess Eternal Calamity naturally did not know that there was something called a system in the world. In her opinion, Jun Xiaoyao could not condense the sinful immortal qi with his own power. Don't be complacent. All living beings in the world can't escape the restraints of karma. Since I can't punish you with sins, I'll kill you with karma. Goddess Eternal Calamity was still unwilling to give up. No one had ever been able to leave the 19th level of Infernal Star. Jun Xiaoyao naturally could not break this rule. She attacked again. The red lotus hellfire around her boiled, and countless illusions appeared, as if the karma of countless living beings was flowing. Jun Xiaoyao was surrounded by this energy, but his expression was as usual. At this moment, Goddess Eternal Calamity seemed to have sensed something, and her expression changed dramatically. She looked at Jun Xiaoyao with horror in her eyes. That's right, it was fear. It was as if he had seen some kind of great horror that should not exist in this world. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. I don't believe it. Goddess Eternal Calamity shook her head frantically. His expression was one of shock. Seeing Goddess Eternal Calamity's abnormal reaction, Jun Xiaoyao felt a little strange. Goddess of Eternal Calamity said that she wanted to bind Jun Xiaoyao with karma, but Jun Xiaoyao himself didn't feel anything strange. I haven't even felt anything yet, and you're already crazy? Jun Xiaoyao found the whole thing inconceivable. How is that possible? Is your past a complete blank? There's no karma, no connection. All living things in the world? Were they all related? Was it because of fate? Why don't you have anything? Like a person who doesn't exist in this world. Goddess Eternal Calamity's face was filled with shock and even a hint of fear. It was said that the 19 levels of hell were strange. However, the Jun Xiaoyao in front of her made Goddess of Eternal Calamity feel even more creepy and terrifying. He was clearly a living person who existed in this world. Why didn't he have any past or karma? This was truly like seeing a ghost in the flesh. Oh, I see. Jun Xiaoyao heard Goddess Eternal Calamity's ravings. Now he understood. It turned out that it was because he was not connected by karma. Is it because I'm a time traveler? Jun Xiaoyao thought of this point. He was a time traveler? Strictly speaking, he was not completely a creature of this world. And Jun Xiaoyao was originally. He didn't care about karma or fate. As long as he was strong enough, he could decide everything. Why is it like this? No, is it because? Goddess Eternal Calamity thought of a certain possibility. Is he the legendary fateless one who ranks first among the 3,000 constitutions? Goddess Eternal Calamity thought to herself. The 3,000 constitutions were the most amazing ones in the world since ancient times. Those who ranked in the top hundreds all had extremely rare constitutions. Those who ranked in the top 100 were all geniuses. Those who ranked in the top 30 were absolute geniuses, such as Polychoria, Bones of Supremacy, Emperor Physique, Innate Taoist Embryo, and so on. Those who ranked in the top 10 were the only ones in history. The sacred body of the ancients, the tyrant body of the heavens, the divine body of chaos, and so on were among them. In fact, It was difficult to completely distinguish between these top-notch constitutions. After all, constitutions were one thing, and personal strength was another. The sacred body of the ancients and the tyrant body of the heavens had been competing for countless years, but there was no clear winner. However, there was one constitution that was an exception. This constitution ranked first among the 3,000 constitutions, firmly suppressing the other constitutions. Since ancient times, the ranking had not changed. He was none other than a legendary Fateless One. Fateless One jumped out of the 3 realms and did not belong to the 5 elements. There was no fate, no karma. No one could investigate their past, and no one could predict their future. This was the only anomaly in the world since ancient times. They were not connected by karma and did not fall into the mortal world. This kind of constitution did not seem to have any fancy abilities, but it was the most terrifying. Because with this kind of constitution, it was equivalent to a person who did not exist. Not to mention great emperors, even real immortals could not grasp the river of fate of this kind of person. How terrifying was an existence that even immortals could not see. However, it was also because this kind of constitution was so heaven-defying that it had never been found since ancient times. Some people even doubted whether such a constitution existed. Or could it be that he had just made it up? However, some people believed that if such a constitution did exist, it would be impossible to be discovered. After all, Fateless Ones were inherently difficult to divine and control. Even Goddess Eternal Calamity only had such a guess and did not dare to confirm it. In any case, Jun Xiaoyao was definitely an anomaly. Even she could not do anything about it. Goddess Eternal Calamity said, "How many years has it been to meet someone like you? The biggest anomaly in the world. You will suffer many tribulations even without me doing anything." Hearing this, Jun Xiaoyao smiled and said, "I have gone through more than one tribulation. It seems that the heavens are helpless against me for the time being." Goddess Eternal Calamity sighed helplessly and said, "You are indeed unique. You are not connected by karma, sin, or the mortal world. Could it be that the taboo of the 19th level of hell was going to be broken because of Jun Xiaoyao? Go," Goddess Eternal Calamity said. Her ability was so terrifying that even paragons were afraid of her. However, she could not do anything to Jun Xiaoyao. If Jun Xiaoyao really was a legendary Fateless One, he would be able to do so. She was merely the goddess of eternal calamity, so it was even more impossible for her to threaten Jun Xiaoyao. "It seems that you can't do anything to the Son of God," Jun Xiaoyao said with a playful look in his eyes. He stepped forward and approached Goddess Eternal Calamity. "What are you doing?" Goddess Eternal Calamity was startled, and her eyes were filled with vigilance. Chapter 565. Goddess Eternal Calamity admitted that she couldn't do anything to Jun Xiaoyao. But then again, it was impossible for Jun Xiaoyao to do anything to her. The 19th level of Infernal Star was her home ground. There was an endless stream of energy flowing into her body at every moment. Therefore, Goddess Eternal Calamity was almost indestructible on the 19th level. Unless Jun Xiaoyao could destroy the entire Infernal Star. Jun Xiaoyao walked up to Goddess Eternal Calamity and reached out to pinch her chin. "Don't act all high and mighty in front of me, the Son of God. You're just a cultivator who died on the Emperor Road. You're just a living being formed by the accumulation of karma and resentment. If you really piss me off, it's not impossible for me to destroy the entire Infernal Star." Jun Xiaoyao couldn't do it himself. However, the power behind him was able to do so. "So, what else do you want?" Goddess Eternal Calamity was wary of Jun Xiaoyao because she suspected that he was a Fateless One, but didn't do anything. Ordinary women would have blushed and their hearts raced if they were so close to Jun Xiaoyao. But Goddess Eternal Calamity didn't. She was a living being formed by the accumulation of karma and resentment. She had almost no human emotions. "You're not bad. You're qualified to be my follower, the Son of God," Jun Xiaoyao said calmly. Jun Xiaoyao intended to create followers like his father, the God King 8. Therefore, he had always been paying attention and looking for those talents that could catch his eye. Now, Jun Xiaoyao had 3 followers. Yi Yu, the successor of the ancient monarchs. Yang Qingying, the successor of the god-devouring demonic technique. Goddess Eternal Calamity had a special background, but she had the terrifying ability to control karma and sin. She was indeed a rare talent. What? You want to take me as your follower? Even Goddess Eternal Calamity was a little stunned. Her beautiful cheeks, branded with black runes, froze. Who was she? The ruler of the 19th level of Infernal Star. The embodiment of the power of sin. It was feared by countless people and became one of the 7 legendary inconceivable existences. And now, Jun Xiaoyao actually said that he wanted to take her in as a follower. This was simply insane. Are you joking? Goddess Eternal Calamity asked coldly. Judging from your words and actions, you must have your own thoughts and soul. Are you so willing to stay in this godforsaken place? And you, to put it nicely, are the controller of karma. To put it bluntly, you're just a puppet of those vengeful spirits. Jun Xiaoyao's words were like thorns stabbing into Goddess Eternal Tribulation's heart. Indeed, the meaning of her birth was nothing more than the resentment of countless Emperor Road cultivators. To put it bluntly, he was just a tool. Furthermore, his freedom would be forever restricted. You wield the power of karma. Yet, you are unable to sever your own karma. Isn't that also a form of sorrow? Jun Xiaoyao said. What did he think? He was like a scammer, trying to trick people. And Goddess Eternal Calamity had always stayed on the 19th level of Infernal Star. To a certain extent, her thinking was quite simple. Compared to Jun Xiaoyao, who was full of evil tricks, she still seemed very naive. And to tell you the truth, only I have the ability to give you freedom and promise to let you get rid of the shackles of resentment. You can obtain true freedom. Jun Xiaoyao continued to persuade her. Goddess Eternal Calamity was finally moved. She said, "Can you really give me freedom?" "Of course." Jun Xiaoyao nodded. "But I can't leave Infernal Star. And Infernal Star is the source of my power. If I leave, my power will weaken a lot," Goddess Eternal Calamity said. "You don't have to worry about that. As long as you agree, I will naturally come back in the future. I will take you out. As for the source of power, I will think of a way when the time comes. And with your talent, even if you don't rely on Infernal Star, your strength will not be weak in the future," Jun Xiaoyao said. Then, all right. Goddess Eternal Calamity nodded. She really wanted to get rid of the influence of resentment and obtain freedom. Jun Xiaoyao had only awakened this desire of hers. Jun Xiaoyao smiled. Since Goddess Eternal Calamity had agreed, this was also karma. But now, Jun Xiaoyao was not able to take Goddess Eternal Calamity out by himself. But there would definitely be a chance in the future. What's next? Are you going to leave? Goddess Eternal Calamity asked. Of course not. It's not easy to come to the 19th level of Infernal Star. How can I leave so easily? Jun Xiaoyao said. When he entered the depths of Infernal Star, the supreme bone in his chest had been burning. Could it be that my supreme bone's third superpower is about to awaken? Jun Xiaoyao asked suspiciously. The first superpower of his supreme bone was the power of heaven, and the second superpower was the power of reincarnation. Could the third superpower be the power of sin? Jun Xiaoyao thought, sat down cross-legged, and activated the supreme bone. In an instant, the supreme bone shone with a dazzling light, and a terrifying suction force burst out. The power of sin and the red lotus hellfire in the surroundings surged toward Jun Xiaoyao's chest like rivers flowing into the sea. This was a shocking scene. Goddess Eternal Calamity also took a deep breath. She did not expect Jun Xiaoyao to undergo such a change. It seems that the third superpower of my supreme bone is indeed related to the power of sin. If that's the case, Jun Xiaoyao opened his hands and activated the supreme bone with all his strength. Thousands of karmas, all on my body. Eternal sin, return to my body. Jun Xiaoyao's supreme bone swallowed the endless power of sin from the 19th level of Infernal Star. He seemed to have become the center of Infernal Star. A terrifying power seemed to be gradually brewing, gathering, and awakening in Jun Xiaoyao's chest. The dazzling supreme bone in his chest also seemed to be stained. It began to be stained with a dark red color, with a demonic will and power of sin. Obviously, the power of the third superpower of the Supreme Bone would be very strange and terrifying. Previously, Jun Xiaoyao's Supreme Bone did not have much of a sense of existence because Jun Xiaoyao could defeat everything with just his sacred body of the ancients. He did not need to use the Supreme Bone. But now, Jun Xiaoyao's Supreme Bone's third superpower was about to awaken, and the power of the bone would also be displayed. In addition, Jun Xiaoyao seemed to have some kind of enlightenment. Karma, sin, creation, Jun Xiaoyao murmured. He sat cross-legged on the spot, and a wisp of sin immortal qi appeared on the surface of his body. The endless power of sin formed a cocoon and wrapped him inside. When Goddess Eternal Calamity saw this, she was also shocked. She had never seen anyone who could use the power of sin so skillfully. Is this the power of a fateless one? Goddess Eternal Calamity thought to herself. If Jun Xiaoyao was really a legendary fateless one, being his follower would not be a humiliation, but an honor. Jun Xiaoyao had been in this state for a long time. More than half a year had passed unknowingly. The training ground outside the Infernal Star was in a hubbub. Everyone was talking about Jun Xiaoyao. Chapter 566. It's been more than half a year, and the son of God of the Jun family still hasn't come out of the 19th level of the Infernal Star. Is he really dead? I don't think so. When the son of God of the Jun family entered the Bronze Immortal Palace, he only came out after a long time. No one knows if the divine child of the Jun family has really fallen or if he's just developing in a wretched manner without waiting for a few years. The barren heaven battlefield of the 18th level of the Emperor Road is about to open. If the son of God of the Jun family doesn't come out, won't he miss the chance to get the seal of proving doctrine? Many geniuses were whispering to each other. The seal of proving doctrine was very important. It was the recognition of the heavenly path. The geniuses who obtained the seal of proving doctrine would have a great advantage when they tried to prove their way in the future. Many of the geniuses who were qualified to step onto the ancient road of ultimate destination had obtained the seal of proving doctrine. The geniuses who had merged with the seal of proving doctrine were far stronger than those who had not. It could be said that if one did not obtain the seal of proving doctrine, they would be looked down upon by the geniuses of the other mystic realms even if they stepped onto the ancient road of ultimate destination. Because of this, many geniuses of the Emperor Road of the Huangtian mystic realm began to gather at the barren heaven battlefield of the 18th level of the Emperor Road. The sooner they entered, the higher their chances of finding the seal of proving doctrine. Other than that, there were other opportunities in the barren heaven battlefield. The inheritance of a supreme being was nothing. Even the opportunity to become a boundary emperor might appear. Why hasn't Master come out yet? The nine-headed lion was also bored. Then, he glanced at Kong Xian and curled his lips. Your master is dead. Why haven't you left yet? You want to take my seat as a mount? Dream on. The nine-headed lion thought that Kong Xian was addicted to being ridden by Jun Xiaoyao and did not want to leave. This made the nine-headed lion feel a sense of crisis. The competition to be a mount was so fierce these days. I'm just curious if Jun Xiaoyao can walk out of the 19th level, Kong Xian said. Until now, she still could not accept the fact that Jun Xiaoyao had killed Jade Fozi so easily. She wanted to see with her own eyes if Jun Xiaoyao could create this impossible miracle again. Heh! Is there even a need to doubt it? The word miracle was created especially for my master. The nine-headed lion grinned. It had completely become Jun Xiaoyao's boasting. The golden-winged little rock king, Mu Yuhan, and Xiao Xianer did not leave either. Why isn't little brother coming out yet? Xianer's stomach is already shriveling from hunger. Xiao Xianer frowned and said. At first, she was afraid that Jun Xiaoyao would refine her. Of is of life. She wouldn't leave even if Jun Xiaoyao were to chase her away. The golden-winged little rock king was helpless when he saw this. This little Xianer's appetite was too picky. Uft. T-halves. She didn't even look at him. Perhaps only immortal essence. Of heaven precious. Ts of treasure of course of that. I believe that Lord Son of God will come out safely, Mu Yuhan said firmly. They did not go to the Emperor Road's 18 stages to participate in the barren heaven battlefield. Instead, they chose to wait here. While they were waiting, the news of Jun Xiaoyaro killing the 3 figureheads and entering the Infernal Star's 19 levels had caused an uproar in the Emperor Road. Could it be? From the Emperor Road's first stage to the 18th stage? Every city stage? Many sky prides were discussing Jun Xiaoyaro. Isn't that Jun family's son of God a little too terrifying? He killed Jade Fozi and the other 2 figureheads with just 40% of his strength. Yeah, and the Jun family's son of God has cultivated 4 strands of immortal chi. He's a freak. Even on the ancient road. A sky pride who can cultivate 4 strands of immortal chi? That's rare. The Jun family's son of God hasn't even set foot on the ancient road yet, and is already so powerful. It's a pity that the Jun family's son of God was too impulsive and entered the Infernal Star's 19 levels. Although it's hard to say if he'll die, he might miss the opening of the Barren Heaven battlefield. Some sky prides felt that it was a pity that Jun Xiaoyaro was too impulsive. If he missed the Barren Heaven battlefield and failed to obtain the seal of proving doctrine, it would be a great loss. The entire Emperor Road was talking about Jun Xiaoyao's deeds. Therefore, it was inevitable that the news would gradually spread from the Emperor Road. The Heavenly Void Starfield was a starfield outside the Huangtian mystic realm. It had more than a dozen ancient planets with life. At that moment, an old, furious voice came from a palace deep in the starry sky of the Heavenly Void ancient starfield. Jun Xiaoyao, how dare you kill my disciple? Good, very good. An old man in a white robe was in the palace. His face was red, twisted, and ferocious. He was the master of the Void Swordmaster, the strongest honorable swordsman in the Heavenly Void Starfield. The Void Swordmaster had no faction or sect behind him. He only had the Honorable Swordsman as his master. The Honorable Swordsman only had the Void Swordmaster as his disciple. He almost treated the Void Swordmaster as half a son. The Honorable Swordsman was the one who found the Void Book on the Void Swordmaster and gave it to the Void Swordmaster. Multi-source app Mimi read it was obvious that the Honorable Swordsman doted on the Void Swordmaster. However, that disciple, whom he had high hopes for, was killed by Jun Xiaoyaro without a second thought. It was obvious that this hatred would not end until one of them was dead. Damn it. My disciple is so strong and has cultivated half a spacebook. It's impossible for him to be killed so easily. It must be that Jun Xiaoyaro who oppressed my disciple with his background. The more the Honorable Swordmaster thought about it, the angrier he became. He did not want to believe that the disciple that he had carefully cultivated would be killed by Jun Xiaoyaro as if he was sweeping away trash. Therefore, he thought that Jun Xiaoyaro must have oppressed his disciple with the background of the Jun family. Disciple, don't worry. I won't let this go so easily. The Jun family is strong and I can't afford to offend them. However, I still have the ability to secretly kill Jun Xiaoyaro. The Honorable Swordmaster's eyes were cold. He did not think that Jun Xiaoyaro would die on the 19th level of the Infernal Star. He wanted to avenge his disciple personally. As long as I bear with it and wait for Jun Xiaoyaro to leave the Emperor Road, I will find a chance to secretly kill him, the Honorable Swordmaster said to himself coldly. Oh, is that so? Suddenly, an emotionless voice sounded. Who is it? The Honorable Swordmaster felt his hair stand on end. He was terrified. This was his dojo. Normally, no one would dare to step into the Heavenly Void Ancient Star Zone. The Honorable Swordmaster turned around and saw 2 grey-robed figures. One of them was an elder in a grey robe and the other was a grey-robed child who was about 10 years old. You are. The Honorable Swordmaster sensed that something was wrong. You dare to plot against the successor of the Jun family. I have to say that you are very brave. The grey-robed elder grinned. The Honorable Swordmaster was shocked when he heard that. He was overwhelmed with shock. The grey-robed child snorted and said, "Why are you talking nonsense? How dare you plot against the darling of the Jun family? Kill him." Then, he raised his hand and a golden octagonal ancient mirror appeared. It was engraved with the patterns of the 8 trigrams. The mirror seemed to reflect the 3,000 greater worlds. A vast emperor's aura spread out and suppressed all directions. The Honorable Swordmaster almost stopped breathing. A chill ran down his spine. When this ancient golden mirror appeared, he completely understood everything. Boom! A golden light beam that could destroy everything shot out from the ancient mirror. The honorable swordmaster did not even have the chance to struggle. He was directly turned into ashes by this attack. The most powerful honorable in the heavenly void ancient star zone was killed in one move. Chapter 567. If the other cultivators in the heavenly void ancient starfield saw this, they would definitely be shocked to the core. This was the most powerful supreme in the heavenly void ancient starfield. Not only that, but he was also very famous in the surrounding ancient starfields. In the end, he was killed in a single move. He died in such a straightforward manner. Looking at the ashes of the honorable void sword, the 16th ancestor put away the Sky Emperor mirror and snorted. What an idiot. He offended the Jun family. I'm afraid he won't even be able to reincarnate. Hehe, Xiao Yao, this child, how long has it been since he stepped on the Emperor's road? He has already created such a shocking record. The 18th ancestor chuckled, his voice full of pride. The Jun family did not interfere with the Emperor's road. However, they were paying attention to Jun Xiaoyao's every move. Previously, they heard that Jun Xiaoyao had killed Jade Fozi, the sword master of the void, and the third prince of the sea god. They were keeping an eye out, intending to get rid of some hidden dangers for Jun Xiaoyao. Therefore, the 18th ancestor and the 16th ancestor came to the heavenly void ancient starfield. If the honorable void sword had behaved himself and did not want revenge, the 18th ancestor and the 16th ancestor would not have killed him. But what could he do? He had brought this upon himself. The honorable void sword was courting death by scheming against Jun Xiaoyao. Therefore, he could not blame them for taking action. The 19th level of the infernal star shouldn't be too much of a problem for Xiaoyao, right? The 18th ancestor said lightly. It's just a slightly more difficult test. It's nothing. If something goes wrong, we'll just wipe out the infernal star. They were very confident that Jun Xiaoyao could pass the 19th level of the infernal star. At the same time, in another vast ancient starfield. This ancient starfield was blue. There were more than 10 ancient life stars. All of them were blue, and most of them were oceans. This was the ancient Sea King starfield. At this moment, in the central main star, in a magnificent and luxurious underwater palace. Damn it, my son died just like that. Inside the palace, a blue-haired middle-aged man in golden armor was sitting on a throne inlaid with pearls, crystals, and other rare treasures. He let out a furious roar. Below him stood 2 rows of experts. Among them, the one with the weakest cultivation. He was also in the great sage realm. There were even 6 to 7 supreme being experts. Was this an extremely powerful force? Comparable to an undying power. But now, these experts also lowered their heads, not daring to get into trouble. The middle-aged man who was roaring angrily, he was the ruler of the Sea King ancient star zone, the Sea King. Most of the territories in the ancient starfield had many experts. Everything was under his control. From this, it could be seen. The Ocean King's forces were terrifying. Your Majesty, you must avenge our son. Wasn't his death too tragic? That son of God of the Jun family will die a horrible death. Beside the throne, a beautiful woman with a delicate face was sobbing. She sobbed. She was the sea god's third prince's mother and the Sea King's most beloved concubine. Don't I hate him? It's just that Jun Xiaoyao's identity is difficult to deal with. The Sea King's face was gloomy. He was like a furious lion. Although he had quite a number of descendants. But the strongest and most talented among them was still the sea god's third prince. The Sea King also valued the third prince very much. He even thought of passing the throne to him in the future. However, his son, who he thought of as his successor, died tragically on Emperor Road. With the Sea King's temperament, he would definitely pay back 100-fold for killing his son. But the person who killed him was Jun Xiaoyao. He was known as one of the most untouchable people in the Huangtian mystic realm. Although the Sea King had witnessed the battle of the immortals in the Huangtian mystic realm, he had heard about it. Now, no one dared to provoke Jun Xiaoyao unless they had a death wish. Let's think about this at length. The Sea King clenched his fists tightly. He was not stupid. How could a fool control the Sea King ancient star zone? On the contrary, after the Sea King heard the news, he had temporarily calmed down from his initial rage. It would be difficult to take revenge. It was almost impossible. Unless the Sea King ancient star zone could develop to a point where the Jun family would be wary. Otherwise, he would die if he made a move now. As for assassination, the Sea King believed that the Jun family was not that stupid. If Jun Xiaoyaro died, the Sea King ancient star zone would be the first suspect. What? Your Majesty, do you mean that you won't avenge our son? The beautiful woman heard the Sea King's words and screamed. A mother's status depended on her son. Now that she had lost the third prince, the beautiful woman was not only heartbroken because of the loss of her son, but she was also afraid that her status would plummet. If the third prince had not died, she would have been the Empress Dowager of the Sea King ancient star zone. It was because of this that the beautiful woman hated Jun Xiaoyaro, who killed the third prince, to the extreme. Then what do you think we should do? The Sea King said irritably. I don't care. Jun Xiaoyaro must die, and we can't let him die so easily. We must skin him alive, pull out his tendons, and tear him into pieces. The beautiful woman's tone was full of hatred and resentment. The Sea King sighed deeply when he heard this. It was basically impossible. Right at this moment, a charming female voice suddenly sounded. Oh, although we are all women, I have to say that women are the most vicious. Who is it? Hearing this voice, the Sea King and the other powerhouses were shocked and shouted coldly. Boom! The next moment, the top of the palace exploded. Even the seawater was split in two, revealing the blue sky. A magnificent and ancient bronze palace, filled with a sense of desolation, broke through the air and descended. 4 figures slowly stepped out of the bronze palace. They were a blind old man, a crippled old man, a charming woman, and a parrot. At first glance, they looked like the most ordinary beings in the world. However, at this moment, even a fool knew that they were definitely the 4 supreme beings that should not be provoked. This is the Bronze Immortal Palace. You are. The Sea King's breathing stopped and his mind went blank when he saw this. How dare you target the master of the monarch imperial court? You are very bold. Fang Xionyang smiled slightly and was as charming as a flower. At this moment, all the powerhouses of the ancient Sea King Star region felt a chill run down their spine. The Jun family was not the only one who became famous in the immortal battle. There was also a rising immortal force. A force that was specially created by Jun Xiaoyaro. The monarch imperial court. The 4 people in front of them were the 4 supreme elders of the monarch imperial court. Oh my god, 4 supreme mystic venerables. Some of the powerhouses of the ancient Sea King Star region felt their legs go soft. Not to mention the other forces of the monarch imperial court, just these 4 supreme mystic venerables alone were enough to completely destroy the entire ancient Sea King Star region. Chapter 568. The ancient Sea King Starfield had some supreme beings. However, there were no supreme mystic venerables. Now that the 4 supreme mystic venerables had arrived, the supreme beings of the ancient Sea King Starfield were panicking. The Sea King's eyes flashed with a hint of panic, but he quickly calmed down. He cupped his hands and said, So it's the 4 supreme elders of the Emperor's court. I apologize for not going out to meet you. Hearing this, Fang Xionyang smiled and said, Cut the crap. We heard what this woman said just now. She insulted the Emperor's court. What should we do? This. The Sea King was shocked. The beautiful woman beside him was scared out of her wits. Her face was pale as if she had been smeared with a layer of powder. Her body was trembling like a quail. Let her have a taste of what she said just now. Otherwise, the Emperor's court won't let this go, Fang Xionyang said with a smile. That's right. If you don't know what's good for you, then burn, rob, and kill them all, the parrot shouted in a duck-like voice. During the immortal battle, the Emperor's court had confiscated the Wang family's property. The parrot was addicted to it. Hearing this, the beautiful woman was so scared that she almost convulsed. Tears and snot flowed down her face. She knelt before the Sea King and said, Your Majesty, you can't treat me like this. The Sea King's hand trembled slightly. He closed his eyes and then opened them again. His eyes flashed with determination. On one side was the entire ancient Sea King starfield, and on the other side was his beloved concubine. The Sea King knew which was more important. "Don't blame me." The Sea King's eyes flashed with coldness. "No." The beautiful woman screamed. What followed was an extremely bloody scene. The beautiful woman had cursed Jun Xiaoyaro viciously. She said that she would skin Jun Xiaoyaro, pull out his tendons, and tear him into pieces. However, she was the first to taste the extreme pain. The beautiful woman was skinned alive and had her tendons pulled out. In the end, she was ground into a pile of flesh and blood. "Is this enough?" The Sea King breathed heavily. His face was red and slightly distorted. As the king of the ancient starfield? Was he being threatened? He was being tortured to death by his beloved concubine. Spread the word. He would be ridiculed by everyone. "Do you think that's enough?" Fang Xionyang turned around and asked. "Why go through so much trouble? Destroy it." "I think so too." "Quack, quack, that's great. We can burn, kill, and loot again." The parrot was so excited that its feathers stood up. "Are you toying with me?" Upon hearing this, the Sea King exploded. "Do you believe a woman's words?" Fang Xionyang didn't mind at all. An old blind man snapped his fingers. Spatial vortexes began to appear in the void. Numerous figures walked out from within. It was the army of the immortal ancient world. The dawn immortal of immortal ancients, 4 great races. Experts like Ao Kang Yuan. They also led their own elites out in full force. "How dare you," the Sea King bellowed. He completely understood what was going on. Did the monarch dynasty plan to destroy the ancient Sea King starfield from the very beginning? No matter what their attitude was. The monarch imperial court is still developing. How should I put it? They lack money and food. An old blind man stroked his beard and smiled. Although the monarch dynasty had the support of the Jun family, how could they develop? They still needed a huge amount of resources and foundation. Where would they come from? The simplest way? Of course, they would rob them. And the ancient Sea King starfield gave the monarch dynasty an excuse to send out troops. If they massacred the ancient starfield for no reason, it would obviously affect the monarch dynasty's reputation. But now, it didn't matter. With Jun Xiaoyaro as an excuse, they could openly attack. The Sea King wasn't stupid. He thought for a moment and understood. His blue hair danced in the wind as he roared, "The monarch dynasty has gone too far. Kill." An old blind man didn't want to waste time talking nonsense. The monarch dynasty's immortal ancient army attacked together with the 4 of them. Even if all the experts in the ancient Sea King starfield joined forces, they still wouldn't have a chance of winning. "Monarch dynasty, if you want to destroy the ancient Sea King starfield, you will have to pay. Monarch weapon, come out." The Sea King roared. A trident that was covered in golden light pierced out from the bottom of the sea with a vast monarch aura. It was the supreme monarch weapon of the ancient Sea King starfield, the Sea God's Trident. The Sea God's Trident of the Third Prince was a replica of the Sea God's Trident. At this moment, the real monarch weapon appeared and its power surged. "Monarch weapon?" Fang Xionyang tilted her head. Then, with a loud bang, 5 monarch weapons appeared in the bronze immortal palace. Other than the spoils of war from the immortal battle, there was the Chilean wheel, the phoenix wing golden centipede, the wild crocodile's broken tooth and the northern emperor ruler. There was also a wheel that slowly rotated with a vast aura as if it had formed the 6 paths of reincarnation, crushing all enemies in the world. It was the monarch weapon of the reincarnation demon sect, the 6 paths of reincarnation disc. But now, it belonged to the monarch dynasty. When the 5 monarch weapons appeared, all the experts in the ancient Sea King starfield were dumbfounded. Their bodies stiffened as if their souls had been sucked out. Which immortal force could take out 5 monarch weapons at once? In the Huangtian mystic realm, apart from the Jun family, only the monarch dynasty could do so. The Sea King's face turned pale. His body trembled as if he was about to fall to the ground. "It's over." The Sea King muttered to himself. Who would have thought that the third prince of the sea god would lead to the destruction of the entire ancient Sea King starfield? Needless to say, the monarch dynasty's power was more than enough to destroy an ancient Sea King starfield. More than 10 ancient planets with life had been destroyed. The monarch dynasty's troops were like locusts passing through. Wherever they went, there would be nothing left. It was as if they had learned from Zhun Xiaoyao's teachings. But this time, they dug up the roots and left no leeway. In the end, the entire ancient Sea King starfield was destroyed. All the forces related to the Sea King were wiped out. Obviously, this kind of thing couldn't be hidden. It didn't take long for the entire Huangtian mystic realm to know. The most powerful sovereign of the heavenly void ancient starfield, the Swordmaster of the Void, had fallen. As for the ancient Sea King starfield, it was almost completely destroyed. Then, they thought of the news that Zhun Xiaoyao had killed the 3 little tycoons in the Emperor Road. Everyone instantly understood. For a moment, all the forces were shocked. Just because they had offended Zhun Xiaoyao, the people and forces behind the third prince of the sea god and the Swordmaster of the Void had been wiped out. Everyone sighed. In the Huangtian mystic realm, one could offend anyone but the son of God of the Zhun family. Otherwise, not only would they die, but they might also implicate the families and forces behind them. As for the Little Western Paradise, it was the first to express its stance. Everything was predestined. Yu Fu's death was also predestined. As for the Buddhists, they would not have any thoughts of revenge. Everything was up to fate. After that, the Little Western Paradise announced that it would be temporarily closed for a period of time. Some cultivators went to the Little Western Paradise to investigate and found that the Little Western Paradise had already raised a protective array. Is this necessary? Many people thought to themselves. The Little Western Paradise was an immortal sect that had been passed down for thousands of years. How could they be so cowardly? Chapter 569. However, some forces could understand Little Western Paradise's cautious approach. After all, the Zhun family was used to being domineering, and now there was the even more domineering imperial court. With the two forces working together, even Little Western Paradise would have to bow their heads. What made the Western Paradise feel relieved was that the Zhun family didn't come to find trouble with them. It was not that the Zhun family did not dare to provoke them, but Little Western Paradise was not so despicable as to secretly plot against Zhun Xiaoyao. Since Zhun Xiaoyao was not a threat, the Zhun family naturally did not bother to do anything. However, the disturbance this time around had clearly made people aware of it. The Zhun family could not be provoked. Zhun Xiaoyao could not be provoked. The incident in the Huangtian mystic realm lasted for a while before it quieted down. The destruction of an ancient star zone was just a topic for the immortal forces of the Huangtian mystic realm. However, the incident on the Emperor Road did not stop. In the depths of the Emperor Road's 18 levels, the opening of the Huangtian battlefield had undoubtedly set off a storm. Many ambitious geniuses stepped into the barren heaven battlefield, intending to fight for the heavenly fate realm. The Zhun family, Lord Grimm, Zhun Lingcang, and other sequences. The Jiang family, Jiang Shengyi, Jiang Luoli, and others. The Ji family, Ji Qingyi, and others. The demon god palaces Yang Rumeng. The celestial demon cults Xiao Moxian. Long Shu Huang, Huang Jiuyan, and the descendant of the crocodile ancestor. Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, Princess Longji, and others who had made a name for themselves on the Emperor Road were all preparing to enter the Huangtian battlefield. In addition, many monstrous geniuses from the ancient star zone were also preparing to enter. In the depths of the Emperor Road's 18 levels, on an immeasurable mountain peak that towered into the stars, a black-robed figure with a cold face stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the deep starry sky in the distance. He carried a blood-stained sword on his back. The biting cold sword aura caused the stars in the sky to tremble as if they were about to fall. In the distance, some geniuses had been paying attention to this place. The young man in black was the reincarnation of the sword demon of the Yi clan, Yi Guchen, ranked first on the Barren Sky Saint ranking. Zhun Xiaoyao, not only are you not dead, you have become even stronger. I'm afraid even the 19th level of Infernal Star will not be able to trap you, Yi Guchen said calmly. Jun Xiaoyao, this was a name that people could not help but revere when it was mentioned. But when it came from Yi Guchen's mouth, there was only fighting spirit in his eyes. There was no other emotion. In the past, in the Huangtian mystic realm, Yi Guchen had once said that kings do not meet kings. But now, the king and the king were about to meet. In my hands. Only the tip of the sword is 3 feet long and invincible. Reincarnating and cultivating all over again just to be defeated. As soon as Yi Guchen finished speaking, the Imperial Slayer sword on his back. It released a monstrous sword light that directly cut down the many stars suspended in the starry sky. Jun Xiaoyao, what if you come out? At the end of the Huangtian battlefield, we will fight in the heavenly law arena. As soon as he finished speaking, countless stars in the starry sky exploded at the same time, as if the curtains had been drawn for this peak battle. Is Yi Guchen challenging Jun Xiaoyao? Interesting. Very interesting. This will be the ultimate battle of the geniuses on this Emperor Road. In the distance, many of the geniuses who were paying attention to Yi Guchen, their eyes were filled with excitement. These 2 people. One of them was the reincarnation of the ancient sword demon. He cut off his past and reconstructed his true self. Not long after he stepped onto the Emperor Road, he took first place on the Huangtian Saint ranking. The other person was the son of God of the Jun family, who had never been defeated since he was born. He was known as the Invincible Saint and the number 1 of the younger generation in the Huangtian mystic realm. If these 2 people were to fight, there was no doubt that it would be the most dazzling battle in the entire Emperor Road. Oh, no, I have to go bet. Who do you think will win? Don't rush. The son of God of the Jun family may not be able to come out of the 19th level of the Infernal Star. But no matter what, if the son of God of the Jun family comes out, he will definitely come. Then, there will be something to see. This will be the battle for the throne of the Emperor Road. It could be said that Yi Guchen's battle this time had ignited the atmosphere of the entire Emperor Road. Amidst such heated emotions, the barren heaven battlefield finally opened. It was an ancient and vast battlefield, located at the end of the Huangtian mystic realm's Emperor Road's 18 levels. In this vast ancient battlefield, there were supreme treasures, opportunities for quasi-emperors, divine gold, elixirs of immortality, immortal marrow veins, and all kinds of treasures and opportunities that were tempting. Of course, there was also the thing that all geniuses yearned for the most, the seal of proving the way. There was more than one seal of proving the way. Generally speaking, it was already very impressive for a genius to get one seal of proving the way. However, there were some extremely talented geniuses who could even get 2 or 3. Even on the ancient road, these geniuses were definitely the top geniuses. With the desire to prove the way in their hearts, many geniuses stepped into the barren heaven battlefield. It was destined to be a blood-stained battlefield. Of course, there were also some geniuses who were waiting for Jun Xiaoyao to appear, such as the Golden-Winged Rock, Mu Yuhan, and Kong Xian. They did not go to the barren heaven battlefield. Instead, they waited for Jun Xiaoyao. This wait lasted for another year. In the blink of an eye, it had been 3 or 4 years since the Emperor Road opened. Most of the geniuses who stepped onto the Emperor Road had fallen. A small number of them had worn out their will and stayed in the city along the way, or left quietly. The remaining geniuses who could step into the barren heaven battlefield were all giants among men. Their talent, strength, and temperament were all flawless in all aspects. Only these geniuses were qualified to step onto the ancient road and compete with the geniuses from the other mystic realms. During this year, there was also a lot of news that spread from the barren heaven battlefield. For example, Long Shuhuang, who had the dragon phoenix body, obtained an opportunity in the barren heaven battlefield and cultivated 3 strands of immortal qi, shocking the entire battlefield. He even had a conflict with Princess Long Ji, an ancient freak from the Zulong Azure dragon bloodline, and injured her in the end. There was also Huang Jiuyan, an ancient freak from the Wanhuang Spirit Mountain. Some people said that his phoenix rebirth incantation had undergone nirvana 8 times. When he underwent the final nirvana 9 times, he would be able to trace his origin and possess a pure bloodline comparable to the descendants of the ancient emperors. There was also the descendant of the crocodile ancestor, who was extremely ferocious and had devoured more than one small powerhouse. What puzzled some people was that Yi Guchen, who was ranked first on the Baron Heaven Saint ranking, did not have any battle results. That was because no one dared to casually compete with him. Since no one dared to compete with him, Yi Guchen naturally did not have any shocking battle results. However, wasn't this the most shocking battle result? Apart from these people, there were also many stories of geniuses spreading. Recently, the most eye-catching news was related to the Jiang family's goddess, Jiang Shengyi. There were rumors that Jiang Shengyi seemed to have found a divine fetus in some ancient ruins in the Barren Heaven battlefield. This undoubtedly caused an uproar in the entire Barren Heaven battlefield. It was rumored that a divine fetus was the energy source left behind by a remnant immortal. Previously, in the immortal ancient world, Jun Xiaoyaro had obtained a drop of blood from a remnant immortal, which had attracted many covetous eyes. Moreover, it was a divine fetus. The birth of a divine fetus undoubtedly drove all the geniuses crazy. That might be the energy left behind by a remnant immortal. If we obtain it, we can cultivate at least one strand of immortal qi. I think it's more than one. I think we can cultivate at least 2 strands of immortal qi. In the Barren Heaven battlefield, all the geniuses were tempted. In an instant, the Jiang family's goddess, Jiang Shengyi, was pushed to the forefront of the storm. There were rumors that some small powerhouses had already begun to secretly form an alliance to obtain the divine fetus. Chapter 570. The entire Barren Heaven battlefield was in an uproar because of the birth of the divine fetus. The dojo outside the Infernal Star was equally lively. Most of the Sky Prides on the Emperor Road who did not go to the Barren Heaven battlefield came to watch the show. It's been more than a year. Why hasn't the Jun family's son of God shown any signs of coming out? Who knows? Maybe he's really dead. If that's the case, it's good news for the other Sky Prides. However, the Barren Heaven Immortal Realm might be weaker than the others in the Ancient Road contest. Previously, there was news that the other Immortal Realms had extremely powerful outlawed Sky Prides. It could be said that the era of great battles was really exciting. The Sky Prides rose and the kings competed for supremacy, while the Sky Prides in the dojo were discussing incessantly. On the 19th level of the Infernal Star, it was still a crimson world, like a purgatory. However, if one looked closely, they would notice that the sinful karma here was much thinner. How is this possible? The Infernal Star has accumulated sinful karma for countless eras. More than half of it has been absorbed by him. Goddess Eternal Calamity's eyes were filled with unprecedented shock. For more than a year, the cocoon formed by Jun Xiaoyaro had been madly absorbing the sinful karma of the Infernal Star almost all the time. Even the tiniest bit of this terrifying power of sin was enough to destroy the physical body and soul of an ordinary Sky Pride. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was like a bottomless pit, constantly absorbing the sinful karma. Goddess Eternal Calamity even felt that her power had decreased a lot. Most of the Infernal Star's power had been absorbed by Jun Xiaoyaro. So much sinful karma. Even a supremacy can't bear it. Is this the power of a fateless one? Now, Goddess Eternal Calamity was more and more certain that Jun Xiaoyaro was a true fateless one. Only a fateless one would be able to absorb the karmic power of karma in such a way. This was because the power of karma could not affect him at all. It could not taint his body. While Goddess Eternal Calamity was secretly shocked, the cocoon that had been dormant for more than a year finally began to tremble. Cracks began to spread across the cocoon. At the same time, an aura that made even Goddess Eternal Calamity tremble erupted like a volcano. This aura was too powerful. It gave people the feeling that an ancient god was awakening. Boom! The entire cocoon burst open, and endless red lotus karmic fire surged out. The entire 19th level of Hellstar was shaking. Jun Xiaoyaro, who was dressed in a peerless white robe, stepped out of the red lotus hellfire that filled the sky. He looked like a supreme god who had just awakened from the depths of hell. Step by step, he stepped forward. With every step he took, his aura would increase by a notch. His first step was the early stage of the saint stage. The second step was the middle stage of the saint stage. The third step was the late stage of the sage realm. His fourth step was the small perfection of the saint stage. He took the fifth step and reached the great circle of the sage stage. Jun Xiaoyao took 5 steps, and his cultivation level shot up by 5 minor levels. If an outsider were to see this, their heart would definitely stop beating. One had to know that this was the sage stage, not the divine bridge, unity, or Tao integration stages from before. In that realm, some geniuses might be able to make consecutive breakthroughs. However, in the sage stage, each minor level was comparable to the previous major level. It was extremely difficult to make consecutive breakthroughs. Even some monstrous geniuses found it difficult to do so. However, Jun Xiaoyao easily broke through 5 stages in a row. It was as simple as eating and drinking. A perfected saint. Barely passable. Sensing his current level, Jun Xiaoyao clicked his tongue. He was not too surprised. This was just a basic operation. Jun Xiaoyao had long been used to it. However, he had the title of Invincible Saint before. Now that he had broken through to the perfected saint realm, how much would his strength soar? Jun Xiaoyao himself would not know if he did not make a move. Of course, the realm was just a bonus. Jun Xiaoyao did not care about it. The main reason he went into seclusion this time was not to make a breakthrough. I've finally awakened the third superpower of the supreme bone. Feeling the scorching bone in his chest, Jun Xiaoyao murmured. The supreme bone in his chest had absorbed an endless amount of sinful energy. It had long turned into a strange dark red color, filled with demonic intent and sinful energy. Jun Xiaoyao activated the supreme bone. A terrifying dark red demonic light surged out along with the red lotus hellfire. Ordinary geniuses would be entangled by endless sinful power, burned by the hellfire, and eventually turned into ashes. The third superpower of the supreme bone, sinful demonic light, Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself. The first superpower, light of tribulation. The second superpower, light of reincarnation. The third superpower, sinful demonic light. Of course, the sinful demonic light in front of him was only the embryonic form of the third superpower. After Jun Xiaoyao cultivated it further, it would transform into a complete superpower. Just like the hand of heaven and the Tao disc of reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyao controlled the supreme bone again. The sinful power dissipated, and the supreme bone became crystal clear again. That's not all, Jun Xiaoyao said with a deep look in his eyes. In this world, where there is light, there is darkness. The first move of my origin great path superpower, Genesis, is God's light. When light appears, darkness is also born. The endless karma and sinful power in the world are all the power of darkness. Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself as if he had fallen into some kind of enlightenment. His hands began to evolve all kinds of mysterious paths. The origin energy of the universe surged out of the God's origin in his dantian. And this origin energy of the universe began to merge with the sinful power. This aura, in the distance, Goddess Eternal Calamity felt the dangerous aura emanating from Jun Xiaoyao. The fact that Jun Xiaoyao's sovereign bone was able to control the power of sin had already shocked her. But now, Jun Xiaoyao's body surged with a terrifying aura again. At the same time, there was another power that made Goddess Eternal Calamity wary. It was not the sinful power, but the origin energy of the universe. In the end, Jun Xiaoyao used the origin energy of the universe to merge with the sinful power. Countless dark red threads appeared around him. Those were sinful threads, the threads of karma. If anyone was entangled by them, they would suffer a great calamity and suffer great terror. Let's call this move God's punishment, Jun Xiaoyao said indifferently. Sinful karma entangled, punishing all living beings. This was Jun Xiaoyao's origin great path superpower, the second move of Genesis, God's punishment. This move also meant that Jun Xiaoyao punished living beings on behalf of God. The second move, God's punishment, represents darkness, and the first move, God's light, represents light. If these two moves can be combined, Jun Xiaoyao had already begun to calculate whether he could combine these two moves to create an even more terrifying move that could destroy the world. At this moment, Goddess Eternal Calamity, who was watching from not far away, was so shocked that she could not speak. Her body was extremely stiff, as if it had been frozen. Jun Xiaoyaro was an anomaly among anomalies, a monster among monsters. Chapter 571. After pondering for a while, Jun Xiaoyaro made his move again. He activated the cosmic origin energy again and slowly raised both his hands at the same time. In his left hand, a blinding divine light spread out. It was like the first ray of light at the beginning of the universe. In his right hand, the red lotus fire rose. The dark red sinful karma thread appeared as if it was going to punish all living beings. Jun Xiaoyaro used both the light of God and retribution of God at the same time. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro was holding the life of light in his left hand and the darkness of sin in his right. He was like the god of destruction and rebirth, controlling life and death in the world. Then, Jun Xiaoyaro slowly merged the two forces together. In an instant, a destructive wave swept out. The entire 19th level of the infernal star was shaking. Go! Jun Xiaoyaro lashed out with one attack. Destructive shockwaves swept out, destroying everything in its path. Then, the wave broke through the barrier of the 19th level of the infernal star. Then, it went on to the 18th level, the 17th level, the 16th level. In the end, with a terrifying sound that shook the heavens, the vast and boundless wave of destruction directly pierced through the entire infernal star. Rumble. In the dojo outside the infernal star, many sky prides who were chatting suddenly felt a terrifying wave sweep out. It made their hair stand on end. What's going on? It's the infernal star. Something has happened to the infernal star. Could it be that the son of God of the Jun family has come out? All the sky prides looked over at the same time. What? Master is coming out. The nine-headed lion, golden-winged roc, Mu Yuhan, Kong Xian, and the others looked over at the same time. Then, all the sky prides in the dojo saw a shocking scene. A destructive wave pierced through the entire infernal star and spread out, destroying and shattering many of the surrounding stars. Hiss, countless gasps could be heard. What? What kind of wave is that? Could it be that the unknown existence in the 19th level of the infernal star is angry? Terrifying. This is too terrifying. If I were to touch even the slightest bit of that fluctuation, I would definitely be smashed into pieces. Many geniuses had goosebumps all over their bodies. They had no idea that Jun Xiaoyaro was the one behind all that commotion. He thought that something had happened in the 19th level of Hellstar. Doesn't that mean that the son of God of the Jun family is in danger? Some of the geniuses looked at each other. Just as the geniuses outside were in a state of extreme shock. On the 19th level of Hellstar, Goddess of Eternal Calamity gaped at the scene, unable to recover from her shock for a long time. Piercing through the infernal star in one move, what kind of power was this? More importantly, this was a divine ability that Jun Xiaoyaro had created himself, not something that he had learned from somewhere else. This further demonstrated how monstrous Jun Xiaoyaro was. Not bad. Looking at the damage he had caused, Jun Xiaoyaro nodded. Right now, this was just a preliminary test, and its power did not disappoint him. In the future, it should be even more powerful. At this point, it was about time for Jun Xiaoyaro to leave Hellstar. This time, he had gained a lot on Hellstar. He had condensed the Void Immortal Chi, signed in the Sin Immortal Chi, and obtained the King of Immortal Marrow. He had awakened the third divine ability of the Supreme Bone, comprehended the second move of Genesis, and his cultivation had broken through to the Sage Realm. In short, Jun Xiaoyao's strength had once again soared to a new level. The only one who could surpass Jun Xiaoyaro was himself. On the other side, after Goddess of Eternal Calamity came back to her senses, she turned her head and looked at the outside of Hellstar that Jun Xiaoyaro had pierced through. What is that? Looking at the twinkling stars, Goddess of Eternal Calamity was a little dazed. It's freedom, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Goddess of Eternal Calamity hesitated for a while and said, I want to leave. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded slightly and said, okay, I'll take you away. Previously, Jun Xiaoyaro couldn't take Goddess of Eternal Calamity away because the restrictions on the 19th level of Hellstar were too strong. However, after more than a year, Jun Xiaoyaro had absorbed most of the sinful energy of Hellstar. The restrictions of the rules had also been greatly weakened. Jun Xiaoyaro had even pierced through Hellstar with one move. He could now safely take Goddess of Eternal Calamity away. After leaving Hellstar, my strength will be weakened a lot, Goddess of Eternal Calamity said. The reason why even Supremes couldn't escape from the 19th level of Hellstar was mainly because of the power of Hellstar. Now that Goddess of Eternal Calamity had left Hellstar, she naturally couldn't have the power to destroy everything. It doesn't matter. Your talent is here. Follow me, and in the future, you will be able to see all the prosperity of this world, Jun Xiaoyaro said indifferently. Goddess of Eternal Calamity finally made up her mind and nodded. Let's go. Jun Xiaoyaro put his hands behind his back and took the lead, walking out of the passage that had been pierced through. Goddess of Eternal Calamity followed behind. In the dojo outside Hellstar, many geniuses were craning their necks, trying to take a look. However, they didn't dare to get close, fearing that they would have something to do with the 19th level of Hellstar. While waiting like this, at the opening blasted open on Underworld Star, divine radiance shone brightly, immortal will surging. A pharaoh-like figure in a white robe leisurely walked out from the deepest part of Hellstar with his hands behind his back. She looked as if she had just returned from a stroll somewhere. It's the son of God of the Jun family. He's out. He really came out from the 19th level of Hellstar. Oh my God, was it the son of God of the Jun family who had pierced through Hellstar before? Jun Xiaoyao's appearance undoubtedly set the entire place on fire, causing the place to explode with excitement. Nine-headed lion, golden-winged roc, Mu Yuhan, Xiao Xiana, and Kong Xian rushed to the front. Kong Xian was stunned when she saw the figure. All she was waiting for was a result. If Jun Xiaoyaro didn't make it out of the 19th level of Infernal Star, then Jade Foe's death would be avenged. However, at this moment, looking at the white-robed Jun Xiaoyaro, who had a calm expression on his face, despair filled Kong Xian's heart. Jun Xiaoyaro, is he really invincible? Kong Xian asked in a daze. Avenge Jade Ahut? It was just a joke. However, before Kong Xian could come back to her senses, a voice suddenly rang out. The guardian of Hulao Pass, Chongming Prime, also showed himself. He smiled and was about to congratulate Jun Xiaoyaro when he saw the figure behind Jun Xiaoyaro. It was a woman in a red dress. Her jet-black hair flowed down like a river of blood, and her face was cold and beautiful, and it was branded with strange black-colored curse markings. That. Could it be? Chongming Supreme's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His body trembled slightly. As the guardian of Hulao Pass, even though he had never entered the 19th level of Hellstar, he had vaguely heard some rumors. Could she be the existence from the 19th level of Hellstar? Chongming Supreme blurted out in astonishment. Chapter 572. As one of the Seven Wonders, not even Chongming Supreme dared to enter the 19th level of the Infernal Star. However, he had heard rumors that there was a being in the deepest part of the Infernal Star who controlled the sinful power of the entire Infernal Star. At that moment, the cold woman behind Jun Xiaoyaro, who had an eerie air about her, seemed to have something to do with the 19th level of Infernal Star. What? The son of God of the Jun family brought out the being from the 19th level of the Infernal Star? Hearing Chongming Supreme's words, all the geniuses in the training hall were dumbfounded. They looked at Goddess of Eternal Calamity and stepped back, afraid that they would be implicated. Seeing this, Goddess of Eternal Calamity's beautiful eyes flashed with coldness. She realized that the others seemed to be afraid of her and regarded her as a ghost. On the other hand, Jun Xiaoyao didn't have any special feelings for her and was even willing to accept her as a follower. For a moment, Goddess of Eternal Calamity looked at the back of the white-robed figure in front of her with a slight change in her eyes. Yes, she is the being from the 19th level. But now, she is a follower of the Son of God, Jun Xiaoyaro said with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the whole place fell silent. Not only did Jun Xiaoyaro come out of the 19th level unscathed, but he even kidnapped the forbidden being from the 19th level and accepted her as a follower. This was King ridiculous. As expected of the son of God of the Jun family. Chongming Supreme wiped the sweat on his forehead. What a fierce man. After a short moment of silence, all kinds of surprised, shocked, and admiring voices were heard. Jun Xiaoyaro had refreshed everyone's understanding of him. The son of God of the Jun family broke through 2 of the 7 wonders. That's amazing. No one has ever done it before, and no one will do it in the future. Do you think the divine child of the Jun family will explore the remaining 5 incredible things? It's very possible. Don't forget that the Jun family has the title of the 8th wonder. I think that the son of God of the Jun family should be called the 9th most incredible individual, a female genius said with fanatical admiration in her eyes. That's right. The Jun family is the 8th most incredible family, and the Jun family's son of God is the 9th most incredible family member. Even Jun Xiaoyaro did not expect this. He now had another title of the 9th most incredible. Chongming Supreme left after flattering Qin Nan a little. He murmured that the younger generation would surpass him in time. Jun Xiaoyaro walked over to Golden-Winged Rock and the others. The surrounding geniuses all scattered because they were afraid of Goddess Eternally Calamity. Lord Son of God! Golden-Winged Rock and the others cupped their fists. The closer they got to Jun Xiaoyaro, the more they could sense it. Jun Xiaoyaro exuded a powerful aura of might. It wasn't Jun Xiaoyaro who deliberately spread the news. Instead, it flowed out naturally. If I may ask, Lord Son of God's current realm. Golden-Winged Rock hesitated. Barely reached the sage great perfection? Not fast, Jun Xiaoyaro said casually. It wasn't a secret anyway. There was no need to hide it. What? Jun Xiaoyao's casual words fell into the ears of others. It was like a thunderclap. Sage great perfection. Since Jun Xiaoyaro entered the Emperor Road until now? At the very most, it had only been 2 years. Jun Xiaoyaro was only in his 20s. In terms of a cultivator's lifespan, he was as young as a baby. However, Jun Xiaoyaro had already reached the sage great perfection. Oh my God! The Jun family's son of God crossed 5 realms in a single seclusion. Doesn't this mean that it won't be long before the Jun family's son of God becomes a sage king? Maybe the son of God will get the title of the youngest sage king in history again! Exclamation. Shock. Exclamation. Admiration. Kong Xian's delicate body trembled. Her pupils were trembling. She had completely accepted her fate. What Jade Buddha? He wasn't even worthy of carrying Jun Xiaoyao's shoes. The 2 of them were not on the same level at all. Maybe he can be the Jun family's son of God's mount. It's not a bad choice. Kong Xian had this idea. The son of God has such a cultivation level. It seems that the battle with Yi Guchen is going to be interesting. Although Yi Guchen is strong, the Jun family's son of God is not to be trifled with either. After coming out of seclusion, his strength has skyrocketed to such an extent that he even took in the people on the 19th level as his followers. Hearing this, Jun Xiaoyaro raised his eyebrows slightly. It seemed that a lot of things had happened during his seclusion for more than a year. Let's go and find a place to talk, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Yes. Golden-Winged Rock and the others followed behind. Soon, they arrived at a courtyard in Hulao Pass. As soon as they landed, Xiao Xiana jumped in front of Jun Xiaoyao, her big eyes full of desire. She tugged at Jun Xiaoyao's clothes and said, "Little brother, why haven't you fattened up yet?" Jun Xiaoyao glanced at Xiao Xian. There's nothing I like to eat, Xiao Xiana said aggrievedly, rubbing her small belly. Here, Jun Xiaoyao took out the myriad qi cauldron and gave a few strands of myriad qi to Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian immediately smiled and gulped down the myriad qi cauldron. Tell me the latest news. Also, what's going on with Yi Guchen's challenge? Jun Xiaoyao asked. Lord Son of God, it's like this. Mu Yuhan stepped forward and told Jun Xiaoyao all the major news in the past year. I see. The barren heaven battlefield has opened and people are fighting for the seal of proving doctrine. And that Yi Guchen actually challenged me to a battle, Jun Xiaoyao said. He and Yi Guchen didn't have any grudges. The only conflict he had with the Yi family was Yi Xingyun. However, Yi Xingyun didn't die at his hands. He was killed by the Infinite Star Lord. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyao didn't have any grudges with the Yi family. Yi Guchen probably didn't challenge him because of any grudges. It was just a simple challenge. If that's the case, Then I, son of God, will accept. I hope Yi Guchen can surprise me, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Throughout his cultivation journey, he had been invincible. Sometimes, standing at the top and not being able to find a worthy opponent was a kind of loneliness. Yi Guchen was the reincarnation of the sword demon. He was strong and courageous. He dared to cut off his past and reconstruct his true self. Jun Xiaoyaro looked forward to Yi Guchen bringing him some passion that he hadn't felt in a long time. By the way, son of God, there's another piece of news that I'm sure you'll pay attention to, Golden-Winged Rock said. What is it? Jun Xiaoyaro asked. In the barren heaven battlefield, Jiang Shengyi obtained a divine fetus. She's been pushed to the center of attention. It's said that some people might harm her, so they're going to surround her. Is that so? Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were as cold as the abyss. Although he didn't show any obvious anger, Golden-Winged Rock and the others suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. It was as if their blood had frozen. I heard that Long Shu Huang, Huang Zhouyan, the descendant of the crocodile ancestor, and other Archean royalty geniuses might also be involved, Golden-Winged Rock continued. There will always be ants who don't know their own strength. Since that's the case, let's settle this before we step onto the ancient ultimate road. Jun Xiaoyaro flung his sleeves. His aura changed instantly. He changed from a banished immortal to a killing immortal, to the barren heaven battlefield. Chapter 573. At the end of the Huangtian Immortal Domains Emperor Road was the 18th checkpoint. It was called Hangu Pass. After leaving Hangu Pass in the west, it was the starting point of the ancient road. And 1 million li away from Hangu Pass, there was a vast ancient battlefield. Rather than calling it a battlefield, it looked more like a barren continent floating in the starry sky of the universe. Rumor had it that this barren heaven battlefield was an extremely ancient ruin, which left behind many great opportunities. For example, the divine fetus, a rare treasure that was almost impossible to appear anywhere else, could be found in the barren heaven battlefield. It had been a long time since the opening of the barren heaven battlefield. Many sky prides were fighting inside. Of course, there were also some sky prides who did not enter. That was because they were already exhausted from the journey, and their daoist heart had been worn out. Now, they were curious about who could obtain the seal of proving doctrine and step onto the ancient road. The battle between Yi Guchen and Jun Xiaoyaro had also attracted many sky prides. Even some of the natives of the Emperor Road had gathered here to watch the show. In the void, a middle-aged man clad in dazzling armor exuded the aura of a supreme being, suppressing everyone present. He was the guardian of Hangu Pass, one of the 18 checkpoints of the Emperor Road, Supreme Du Tuor. The barren heaven battlefield was the final test of the Emperor Road. It was very important. Even Supreme Du Tuor had no choice but to stay here and guard the place. TSK, the divine fetus. That's something that even I would be interested in. Supreme Du Tuor sighed. A treasure like the divine fetus was something that even a supreme like him would be interested in, let alone the sky prides who were fighting for it. In order to obtain the divine fetus and cultivate divine chi, they would do anything. One-on-one fair competition? That was impossible. But what puzzles me is that the little girl from the Jiang family obtained the divine fetus. Why didn't she refine it directly? Supreme Du Tuor shook his head with confusion in his eyes. Although Jiang Shengyi was being targeted from all sides, she should be able to find the time to refine the divine fetus. With her innate daoist fetus potential, what if she refined the divine fetus? She would definitely become one of the top outlawed sky prides. However, Jiang Shengyi did not do that. Now, in the depths of the barren heaven battlefield, in a barren desert, an immortal figure quickly flew into the sky. She was dressed in a snow-white robe and had a head of white hair. Her immortal appearance was peerless, and she was elegant and refined. Her figure was graceful and flawless. Her delicate body was tall and slender, like a snow lotus that was lost in the world. She had jade-like skin and immortal bones, and her temperament was otherworldly. It was Jiang Shengyi. However, she was not in a good state at the moment. Her exquisite and picturesque face was pale and bloodless, and her snow-white clothes were stained with blood. It was as if the blood plum blossomed. Matched with her snow-white hair, there was a kind of sorrowful beauty. Persist. Persevere. You must wait until he comes. Jiang Xingyi wiped away the remaining blood at the corner of her lips. During this period of time, she had been besieged by various geniuses from time to time. He escaped all the way. As for the Jiang family and the Jun family who wanted to help her, they were also harassed and obstructed, so they couldn't come in time. After all, a supreme treasure like the divine fetus was enough to drive people crazy. No one could resist such a temptation. What made Jiang Xingyi feel uneasy was that some of the major figures seemed to have secretly reached some kind of agreement and started to target her with all their might. Just as Jiang Xingyi was deep in thought, a figure suddenly appeared from the void in front of her. It was a beautiful figure in a green robe, sitting cross-legged on a lotus platform. Her face was covered by a white veil, and only a pair of limpid eyes could be seen. It was the divine daughter of the Ji family, Ji Qingyi. Ji Qingyi, it's you. Jiang Xingyi's beautiful eyes were filled with wariness, and the power of the carnate fetus circulated in her body. Jiang Xingyi, I don't want to declare war with you. I can use all kinds of treasures to exchange for the divine fetus, Ji Qingyi said. Mobile app Mimi read, she didn't have any killing intent, and she didn't want to attack. You know that's impossible. Jiang Xingyi shook her head. The divine fetus was extremely precious. How could it be exchanged for just any treasure? Moreover, she had her own thoughts after obtaining the divine fetus. She couldn't give it to others. How about an Immortal's Sutra? Ji Qingyi smiled. What? You have an Immortal's Sutra? Jiang Xingyi was truly shocked. An Immortal's Sutra was extremely rare. It was rumored that it was a supreme cultivation method left behind by a true immortal. Even some of the immortal forces might only have some incomplete Immortal's Sutras. My Immortal's Sutra is naturally incomplete, but I have half of it. It's enough to cultivate an immortal path Abhina, Ji Qingyi said. Jiang Xingyi looked deeply at Ji Qingyi. Ji Qingyi was not only the goddess of the Ji family of the clan of the ancients, but also the goddess of the Renxian sect. As the successor of two immortal forces, Ji Qingyi kept a low profile, unlike Jun Xiaoyao, whose name was known throughout the Huangtian mystic realm. However, she was definitely the most secretive person. Even Jiang Xingyi couldn't see through her. However, Jiang Xingyi still shook her head. Her divine fetus already belonged to someone. Is that so? What a pity. You've missed a chance to make good friends, Ji Qingyi sighed. Making good friends? Does it have anything to do with you? Jiang Xingyi asked. It's not me. It's the true successor of the Ren celestial sect. He's destined to become a supreme existence, and I'm just an assistant. I also want to obtain the divine fetus for him. Ji Qingyi tucked her hair behind her ear. Her tone was as calm as water. The true successor of the Ren celestial sect. Jiang Xingyi's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. The saintess of the Ren celestial sect, the unfathomable Ji Qingyi, was just an assistant. The Ren celestial sect isn't a large sect native to the Huangtian mystic realm. Like the Saint sect, it came from other mystic realms. That person is destined to become a supreme existence. He's a heaven-defying successor of the Ren celestial sect who's been sleeping for many eras. His body constitution is also ranked in the top 10 among the 3,000 body constitutions. His background is also taboo. You could even say that his background isn't inferior to Jun Xiaoyao's, Ji Qingyi said. Hearing this, Jiang Xingyi felt uncomfortable. She didn't like that there was someone who could be compared to Jun Xiaoyao. In her heart, Jun Xiaoyao would always be the man who stood at the peak and looked down on the world. You're not handing over the divine fetus, but you're also not integrating with it. Could it be that you want to leave the divine fetus to Jun Xiaoyao? Ji Qingyi guessed. Jiang Xingyi's expression didn't change, but her beautiful eyes flickered slightly. Obviously, Ji Qingyi had guessed correctly. If you integrate with such a precious divine fetus, together with the innate Taoist fetus, you'll definitely be able to reach the peak. Long Shu Huang and the others will be defeated by you. But you're willing to be hunted down, surrounded, and injured just to leave the divine fetus to Jun Xiaoyao? Ji Qingyi sighed. She was really surprised. This was beyond her expectations. Something as precious as the divine fetus was enough to make friends turn against each other. Jiang Shengyi risked her life to keep the divine fetus, but it wasn't for herself. She wanted to leave it to Jun Xiaoyao. What kind of deep feelings could make a person make such a choice to sacrifice himself? Chapter 574. Looks like the rumors were true. You were so loyal to Jun Xiaoyao that your hair turned white overnight. Now, you are protecting the divine fetus with your life for him, just so that he can refine it. Ji Qingyi sighed. This kind of feeling was very moving. There is no need to say anything more. I will not give you the divine fetus. Jiang Shengyi's eyes were resolute. The divine fetus was compatible with her carnate embryos. However, in comparison, Jun Xiaoyao had entered the emperor road much later. He needed the divine fetus more. Jiang Shengyi was injured, but she was confident that she could protect the divine fetus in a battle with Ji Qingyi. Ji Qingyi's eyes were deep. For a moment, she was about to activate her dharmic powers. But soon after, Ji Qingyi gave up. Jun Xiaoyao has entered the 19th level of the infernal star. I don't know if he can come out again. If you can't hold on during this period, won't you be giving the divine fetus to someone else for nothing? The news of Jun Xiaoyao leaving the 19th level of the infernal star would not reach Hanggu Pass so quickly, let alone the barren heaven battlefield. This has nothing to do with you. I will protect it with my life, Jiang Shengyi said coldly. Then Jiang Shengyi, take care of yourself. Ji Qingyi shook her head and left. She had her concerns. She was not only worried about Jiang Shengyi's strength. She was also worried about Jun Xiaoyao behind Jiang Shengyi. Ji Qingyi had seen Jun Xiaoyao's power. However, she did not think that Jun Xiaoyao could be stronger than the mysterious successor of the Ren Immortal sect. At the very least, Ji Qingyi could not afford to offend him. Therefore, she gave up. Seeing Ji Qingyi leave, Jiang Shengyi also heaved a sigh of relief. Ji Qingyi was one of the most well-hidden geniuses in the barren heaven mystic realm. If she really attacked, Jiang Shengyi would probably be injured again even if she could escape. I will keep this divine fetus for Xiaoyao. When he comes to the barren heaven battlefield, I will personally hand it to him, Jiang Shengyi murmured. At the thought of that white-clothed figure, Jiang Shengyi couldn't help but smile. Paired with her ethereal beauty, there was a kind of otherworldly beauty. In her body, the carnate Taoist embryo was constantly moving, as if urging Jiang Shengyi to refine it as soon as possible. Jiang Shengyi had been suppressing it all this time. She clearly knew that if she refined this divine fetus, she might be able to cultivate 3, 4, or even 5 strands of immortal qi. But she still refused to do so. Because in her heart, Jun Xiaoyao was the most important. Then, another month passed. After setting off from Hulao Pass, Jun Xiaoyao also pushed his way through. For ordinary geniuses, the Emperor Road was full of danger. But for Jun Xiaoyao, it was like walking on flat ground, as if he was strolling in his own backyard. Now on the Emperor Road, with Jun Xiaoyao's strength, there was nothing that could threaten him. Astral beasts, void undercurrents, and all kinds of dangerous places. Jun Xiaoyao pushed through them all. As for the astral bandits, when they saw Jun Xiaoyao from afar, they had already retreated in fear. Jun Xiaoyao was like a white-clothed divine king, walking in the galaxy, pushing through everything along the way. At this speed, Jun Xiaoyao would soon arrive at the barren heaven battlefield. However, in the past month, the situation in the barren heaven battlefield had also changed. It was not only the geniuses of the Archean royalty, such as Long Xuhuang, Huang Zhuoyan, and the descendants of the crocodile ancestor who were targeting Jiang Shengyi. Not to mention, the geniuses from the ancient starfield had joined forces as well. They seemed to have reached some kind of agreement with Long Xuhuang and the others. Long Xuhuang and the others went to encircle and suppress Jiang Shengyi. As for the geniuses from the ancient star zone, they went to resist those who came to help Jiang Shengyi. In a certain realm of the barren heaven battlefield, several figures were gathering in one direction. One of them was a young girl with 2 ponytails. It was Jiang Luoli. Her eyes were bright, her nose was straight, and her lips were painted. Her face was snow-white and delicate, like a little beauty carved from jade. However, at this moment, her little face was filled with anxiety. She said, "Those guys are too presumptuous. How dare they openly encircle Sister Shengyi?" Previously, because of Jun Xiaoyaro, there seemed to be some distance between Jiang Luoli and Jiang Shengyi. However, this could not hinder the kinship between Jiang Luoli and Jiang Shengyi. Ha! If Jun Xiaoyaro was here, would they dare to be so presumptuous? On the side, a valiant male with a divine seal in his hand sneered coldly. He was the ancient freak of the Jiang family, Jiang Tianyang, with the divine seal king body. "No matter what, let's hurry and save her," another man, Jiang Shuling, said. However, at this moment, a dozen figures suddenly appeared in front of them. Seeing these figures suddenly appear, Jiang Luoli's little face darkened. The leader was a man with long red hair. His aura was as violent as fire, and his cultivation had also reached the saint realm. "So it's Jiyu Yang, the little giant of the Crimson Flame Ancient Star Zone." Jiang Tianyang frowned slightly. This Jiyu Yang was somewhat of a legend. It was rumored that he was originally a disciple of an unknown force in the Crimson Flame Ancient Star Zone. Later, he accidentally fell into the forbidden area of the Crimson Flame Ancient Star Zone, the Fiery Abyss, and was devoured by the ancient flame demon. However, in the end, not only did Jiyu Yang not die, but he also merged with the ancient flame demon, controlled the power of flames, and rose to power. After setting foot on the Emperor Road, he had swept through all his opponents. Now, he had also become a famous little giant. In addition, the geniuses around Jiyu Yang were not weak either. They were not much weaker than the little giants. "Everyone, where are you going?" Jiyu Yang asked with a smile. "Get out of the way. I don't have time to chat with you," Jiang Luoli shouted. "The pearl of the Jiang family is indeed charming. I wonder if I can have the honor to talk about life and dreams with you," Jiyu Yang said with a smile. He was very strong and good-looking. He had become a little giant and was also a dazzling star in the Emperor Road. "Do you think an ugly monster like you is worthy? Your strength can't even compare to Big Brother Xiaoyao's finger. As for your appearance, it's an insult to Big Brother Xiaoyaro to compare your appearance with Xiaoyao's." Jiang Luoli's words were not weak, and the smile on Jiyu Yang's face disappeared when he heard them. "Heh! That Jun Xiaoyaro entered the 19th level of the Infernal Star, and I don't know if he can come out alive. What's so good about liking a dead person? How dare you?" Jiang Luoli puffed up her cheeks, and her eyes were spitting fire. Jiang Tianyang stepped forward and said coldly, "If you want to stop us from helping Jiang Shengyi, just say it. Why do you have to beat around the bush? It's good that you understand. Do you want to sit down quietly, or do you want to fight?" Jiyu Yang's eyes were surging with flames. Vaguely, the shadow of a terrifying ancient flame demon appeared behind him. Chapter 575. I'm just curious. What did Long Shuhuang and the others promise you that you're willing to help them? Jiang Tianyang said coldly. You don't need to know that, Jiyu Yang said calmly. They had reached an agreement with Long Shuhuang and the others. Naturally, there were benefits to be gained. Otherwise, Jiyu Yang wouldn't be so stupid to help others for free. Since that's the case, let me see just how strong the ancient flame demon is. Jiang Tianyang made his move. He formed a divine seal and activated his divine seal king body. His aura was extremely strong. As the ancient freak of the Jiang family, his strength was unquestionable. Haha, I also want to see how strong the ancient freak of the Jiang family is. Jiyu Yang also made his move. Jiang Luoli, Jiang Shuling, and the others also made their moves without hesitation. For a moment, the two sides fought. Magical power burst out, shaking the heavens and the earth. At the same time, in another part of the barren heaven battlefield, three figures were also flying in the air. The man at the front was wearing a plain white robe. He had a wine gourd at his waist and an umbrella in his hand. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his appearance was also unparalleled. It was the ancient freak of the Jun family, Lord Grim, who lay drunk on the battlefield. Beside him were the two sequences, Jun Lingtsang and Jun Mulan. Previously in the immortal ancient world, when the Jun family was in danger, the Jiang family also helped. This time, it's our turn to help them, Lord Grimm said. That's right. As for Jun Wushuang and the others, they should be taking action by now, Jun Lingtsang said. When they heard that the Jiang family was in trouble, the Jun family wouldn't just stand by and watch. This was the friendship between the two families. It was also at this moment that over 100 figures suddenly appeared in front of them. The dozen or so people at the front were all powerful cultivators at the level of minor figureheads. Lord Grimm narrowed his eyes. What is the meaning of this? Jun Lingtsang said coldly. Sequences of the Jun family, it's best that you don't get involved in the Jiang family's affairs. A minor figurehead walked out from the group. It was a man with a rough face and a demonic aura. He was the successor of an undying force, Battle Demon Cave, in a certain ancient starfield. That's right. We don't want to become enemies with the Jun family either. Another man dressed in a royal robe stepped forward. He was the crown prince of Tianyaro Jin dynasty. The other dozen or so small giants also had their own backgrounds. They were all dragons and phoenixes with extraordinary talent. The other 70 or 80 elites weren't much weaker than the overlords. It's my honor to have you mobilize such a large force, but... Lord Grimm's tone suddenly changed. Can you stop me? As Lord Grimm's voice fell, a terrifying aura was released. This aura caused the expressions of the Battle Demon Cave successor, the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Brilliance Jin dynasty, and other minor heavyweights to change. Lord Grimm wasn't listed on the Baron Sky Saint rank because he wasn't interested. If Yi Guchen wanted to compete for the Baron Sky Saint ranking, he might not have been able to get first place so easily. It was also because of this that the big shots of the ancient starfield attached great importance to Lord Grimm. 100 of them had come at once. There were even more than a dozen minor heavyweights holding the fort. The Crown Prince of the Heavenly Brilliance Jin dynasty said, "Of course we can't stop you, but we should be able to delay you." Then let's try. Lord Grimm's eyes were cold. Next, there was no superfluous words. Lord Grimm, Jun Lingtsang, and Jun Mulan fought the 100 or so elites. Just Lord Grimm alone would require a large group of people to suppress him. Only then would they be able to stall for time. On the other side, Jun Wushuang and the other sequences were also harassed by some minor heavyweights. It was difficult for them to come to their aid in a short period of time. In a barren land at the edge of the barren sky battlefield, Jiang Xingyi dragged her tired body to this place. No, if we continue to run, we'll have to leave the barren sky battlefield. But that'll make it easier for us to be targeted, Jiang Xingyi said with a tired expression. Her face was as pale as paper. Her snow-white clothes were mottled with blood, making her look very glaring. In order to protect the divine fetus, she did not even have the time to seize the seal of proving doctrine. It could be said that Jiang Xingyi had sacrificed too much for Jun Xiaoyao. But she had no regrets. At that moment, a playful voice sounded. Jiang Xingyi, I'm tired of this game of cat and mouse. It's time to end it. As the voice sounded, many black dots appeared in the distance. They were the elites of the Emperor Road, and they were surrounding them. The one who spoke was a valiant man with dragon horns on his head and phoenix wings on his back. His aura was suffocating and oppressive, as if an ancient beast had appeared in the world. The bloodline aura on his body was extremely dense. It was Long Shenhuang, who had the supreme dragon phoenix body. Jiang Xingyi, why struggle? Hand over the divine fetus and you'll be spared from physical pain. On the other side of the sky, there was a rain of fire. A man in a luxurious crimson robe with phoenix wings on his back stepped on the flames. He was the ancient freak of the Wanhuang Spirit Mountain, Huang Juoyan. If this woman doesn't know what's good for her, I'll swallow her alive. A hoarse and rough voice sounded. It was a bald, brawny man covered in black scales. His eyes were a pair of dark green vertical pupils, and they were bloodthirsty. He was the descendant of the crocodile ancestor from the ancient Crocodile Lake. These three elites of the Archean royalty stood at the pinnacle of the Emperor Road. In addition, there were hundreds of elites gathered around. They were all elites of the ancient star regions. There were also many small giants among them. There were dozens of them. There were also elites of the Huangtian mystic realm, but they were only watching from afar. After all, Jiang Shengyi's family was one of the 3 Huangtian imperial families in the Huangtian mystic realm. Jiang Shengyi's background was still very intimidating. The elites of the Huangtian mystic realm did not dare to interfere. They could only take advantage of the situation. This time, Jiang Shengyi will really have to hand over the divine fetus, a flawless woman in a pink dress murmured. She was Yang Rumeng of the Demon God Palace. Aya, this is troublesome. Why haven't reinforcements arrived yet? On the other side, a beautiful lowly in a black dress said. She was Xiao Moxian of the celestial demon cult. Xiao Moxian was on good terms with Zhun Xiaoyao. As for Jiang Shengyi and Zhun Xiaoyao's relationship, it was needless to say. Therefore, Xiao Moxian did not want to see anything happen to Jiang Shengyi. However, with her strength alone, she could not turn the tide of the battle. There were dozens of small giants. With the addition of Long Shuhuang and the other 2 royal elites, this was a terrifying lineup. As expected, it's hard to escape the fate of being surrounded. Ji Qingyi also appeared. She shook her head as she looked at the scene. If Jiang Shengyi had given her the divine fetus earlier, he would not have ended up like this. Fairy Qingyi, why didn't you just snatch the divine fetus? I could have brought it back to Master. There was another woman beside Ji Qingyi. She was beautiful and had an extraordinary aura. She had cultivated 2 strands of divine qi and was comparable to a small giant. It was hard to imagine that a small giant would recognize someone else as her master. Jiang Shengyi has an innate Taoist fetus. He is not easy to deal with. However, what I am worried about is Zhun Xiaoyao behind him, Ji Qingyi said. She hid it very well and was very cautious. Because she had seen Zhun Xiaoyao's strength, she would not provoke Zhun Xiaoyao unless she had no other choice. Is Zhun Xiaoyao really as strong as the rumors say? Although he has a top 10 taboo physique like Master, the sacred body of the ancients has declined. It is destined to never return to its former glory. This woman was called Chen Fei. She was a follower of the mysterious successor of the human immortal cult. She was the same as the follower of the overlord that Zhun Xiaoyao had met before. Chen Fei was not a genius of the Huangtian immortal realm. She had used a special method to sneak into the Emperor Road to gather information for her master. She was quite displeased that Ji Qingyi did not get the divine fetus. Chapter 576. You're not from the Huangtian mystic realm. Naturally, you don't know what kind of power and status Zhun Xiaoyao has in the Huangtian mystic realm, Ji Qingyi said. So what? He's nothing in front of my master, Chen Fei said, pouting. In her mind, her master, the successor of the Renxian sect, was invincible. He was destined to dominate the rise and fall of this era. At this moment, Jiang Shengyi, who was surrounded by enemies, didn't show any panic or fear on her beautiful face. As the goddess of the Jiang family, and with the natural embryo of the Wei, Jiang Shengyi's mind was already unbreakable. At this moment, she looked calm and said, "Have you really decided to become enemies with the Jiang family and the Zhun family?" Jiang Shengyi's words made some of the small giants of the ancient starfield look uneasy. Behind Jiang Shengyi stood the Jiang family of the clan of the ancients. The Zhun family and the Jiang family of the ancients had a common enemy. They were in the same boat. Offending Jiang Shengyi was equivalent to offending 2 clans of the ancients. However, thinking of the rewards they could get, these small giants of the ancient starfield calmed down. Long Shuhuang and the others agreed. As long as Long Shuhuang and the other 2 could get the divine embryo, each of them would get at least 1 seal of proving doctrine. They would even be rewarded with immortal marrow. The seal of proving doctrine wasn't something that anyone could get. Even the small giants might not be able to get one. It was obvious how tempting Long Shuhuang's offer was. With the strength of Long Shuhuang and the others, they could get more than 1 seal of proving doctrine. This was the agreement between them. Haha, don't use the Jiang family and the Zhun family to pressure us. When the time comes, Zulong, Wanhuang Spirit Mountain, Ancient Crocodile Lake, and other forces will join forces. Can't we deal with the Jiang family and the Zhun family? Long Shuhuang's face was full of contempt and disdain. The force behind him didn't fear the Jiang family at all. However, Long Shuhuang and the others didn't know that the force behind him had been destroyed by the Zhun family. Yes, indeed. With the support of the Archean royalty, what are we afraid of? The small giants of the ancient star field relaxed when they heard this. With the Archean royalty backing them up, they had nothing to fear. There is only one divine fetus. How will the three of you split it? Jiang Shengyi continued. Don't play this kind of tactic. You don't have to worry about it. Long Shuhuang looked at Jiang Shengyi as if she was looking at a caged beast. Aren't you afraid that Xiao Yarou will come and kill all of you? Jiang Shengyi continued, trying to buy some time. Long Shuhuang's eyes flashed coldly. Let's not talk about whether Jun Xiaoyaro can come out of the 19th level of Hellstar. Even if he can, I'm not afraid of him. After all, Long Shuhuang had cultivated 3 strands of immortal qi. She was stronger than the average little giant. In her expectation, no matter how strong Jun Xiaoyaro was, he shouldn't be able to completely suppress her. My Phoenix Life Restoration art also needs an opponent to achieve the final transformation. Huang Juoyan was also unconcerned. She was still hoping that Jun Xiaoyaro would come. She could use him to train herself. Stop talking nonsense. This woman is obviously trying to buy time. Let's go, the crocodile ancestor's descendant said in a hoarse voice. Boom. Long Shuhuang and Huang Juoyan were also stalling. The two of them attacked at the same time. The crocodile ancestor's descendant also attacked. Although the 3 top sky prides of Emperor Road ganged up on a woman, it would be bad for their reputation. However, at this time, obtaining the divine fetus was the most important thing. Although Jiang Shengyi was a woman, she was not a pushover. With the special advantage of the innate Tao fetus, Jiang Shengyi had also cultivated 3 strands of immortal qi. She waved her hand, and the lines of the great Tao spread out. Jiang Shengyi was like a woman blessed by the heavens. Every move she made triggered the great Tao, and her power was strong. Of course, Long Shuhuang and the others were also not to be trifled with. The 3 of them combined were enough to completely suppress Jiang Shengyi. Obtaining the divine fetus was only a matter of time. As for the other small figureheads, they were here to prevent accidents. If anyone else wanted to save Jiang Shengyi, they would interfere. As time passed, half an hour later, under the suppression of the 3 top sky prides, even someone as strong as Jiang Shengyi could not withstand it. Dragon Phoenix Sky Shaking Palm. Long Shuhuang activated the power of the 3 strands of immortal qi. At the same time, she pushed her ancestral dragon and divine phoenix bloodlines to the extreme. An illusion of an ancestral dragon and a godly phoenix accompanied his palm strike. The void roared and the earth shook. It was like a dragon and a phoenix had crossed time and space from ancient times. Their power shook people's hearts. Fat. Jiang Shengyi was already injured before, and now she was being suppressed by the 3 top sky prides. Long Shuhuang's palm strike was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Jiang Shengyi spat out a mouthful of blood, which splashed on her clothes. It was a tragic sight. At that moment, Huang Juoyan took advantage of the situation. He took out a supreme weapon, a sharp blade made of phoenix feathers. The phoenix feather blade slashed down like a heavenly blade. Jiang Shengyi could only barely dodge, but her arm was still cut, and crystal blood splattered. She was seriously injured again. Damn it, you're too much of a bully. A delicate voice sounded. It was Xiao Moxian of the Celestial Demon Cult. Not to mention that she had some relationship with Jun Xiaoyaro. Even a passerby who had no relationship with her would feel indignant when they saw the 3 of them humiliating a beautiful woman. Xiao Moxian made her move. At the same time, several figures rushed over. Don't be so arrogant. An arrow shot out as if it had pierced through the void. Could it be? The followers of the Jun family's Son of God are here? Seeing the arrow that seemed to be able to pierce through heaven and earth, some of the spectating sky prides exclaimed. A figure appeared. It was Yi Yu. 3 famous sky prides dare to humiliate a woman like this. Long Shuhuang, you've really returned to life. Dragon Qi spread out, and a beautiful woman in a palace dress with dragon horns on her head appeared. It was Princess Longji. Princess Longji, I think you're addicted to being ridden by Jun Xiaoyaro. You've embarrassed Zulong. Seeing Princess Longji appear, Long Shuhuang only sneered. He did not treat Princess Longji as a sky pride of Zulong. Previously, he had even injured Princess Longji because of some opportunities. On the other side of the void, Yang Qingying also appeared in a black dress. Her aura was even deeper, and her eyes were like the stars in the night sky, filled with a chilling coldness. Yang Qingying did not say a word, but she also wanted to participate in the battle. However, those little giants were not to be trifled with. Today, no one is allowed to participate in this battle. Dozens of little giants stood outside like an iron wall, blocking everything. Even though Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, Princess Longji, and Xiao Moxian were very strong, it was obviously impossible to break through the defense of dozens of little giants in a short period of time. Is the Jiang family's goddess really going to die today? Some of the spectating sky prides murmured. At the same time, outside the barren heaven battlefield, many cultivators did not leave. They were paying attention to the news. A sky pride from the ancient star field shook his head and said, "I heard that the Jiang family's goddess did not refine the divine fetus herself because she wanted to leave it for Jun Xiaoyao. Is that so? That's too stupid. Wouldn't it be better to refine it herself? Who knows? Do you think that Jiang Shengyi is having an affair with Jun Xiaoyao? I see. No wonder. Women in love are indeed brainless. But I heard that Jiang Shengyi is the Jun family's son of God's aunt. This relationship, hehe, if you ask me." Just as the sky pride from the ancient starfield was about to say something, the other sky prides from the ancient starfield suddenly froze. He suddenly realized that the faces of the surrounding prodigies who were facing him suddenly froze. Then, the blood drained from their faces and their lips trembled as if they had seen something terrifying. "What's wrong with you?" the sky pride from the ancient star field asked in confusion. "What did you just say? Say it again." A voice as cold as the abyss sounded from behind the sky pride. The prodigy's body suddenly stopped, and he turned around shakily. He saw a white-robed figure with a face as cold as the heavens. Jun. Jun. The sky prides felt as if their throats were blocked. They could not speak. Jun Xiaoyao did not even move a finger as he looked at the man with a cold gaze. Puff, puff, puff. The sky pride's primordial spirits exploded. Their heads exploded like scarlet fireworks. In an instant, the commotion attracted the attention of all the cultivators outside the barren heaven battlefield. The white-robed figure exuded a cold killing intent that shook the heavens and caused the universe to tremble. The great stars in the universe exploded with every step Jun Xiaoyao took. With every step, the wind and clouds stirred. His killing intent overturned the galaxy. The white-robed killing god had finally descended. Chapter 577. It's the son of God of the Jun family. He actually came out of the 19th level of the infernal star. Oh my god, that aura seems to want to destroy my soul. Jun Xiaoyao's arrival undoubtedly ignited the entire atmosphere. It was like a huge rock falling into the sea, causing a huge uproar. It's the son of God of the Jun family, deep in the starry sky. Supreme Du Tuo's eyelids trembled slightly when he saw Jun Xiaoyao. He could feel the extreme murderous intent emanating from Jun Xiaoyao, which seemed to freeze all the stars in the sky. What kind of monster is the son of God of the Jun family? His cultivation has reached the saint great perfection. After sensing Jun Xiaoyao's cultivation, even Supreme Du Tuo's face twitched. He was AF * king pervert. With Jun Xiaoyao here, how could there be room for other geniuses to rise? The cultivators around the barren heaven battlefield also felt Jun Xiaoyao's aura, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Saint. Saint great perfection. Oh my god, terrifying, too terrifying. I thought Jun Xiaoyao would have a hard time against Yi Guchen, but now it seems that I was overthinking. And I heard that the son of God of the Jun family has cultivated 4 strands of divine qi. His not human. Saint great perfection and 4 strands of divine qi. If Jun Xiaoyao claimed to be second, who would dare to claim to be first? At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao descended on the barren heaven battlefield like a god of death in white. Behind him, golden-winged rock, Mu Yuhan, 9-headed lion, goddess of eternal calamity, Xiaoxian and the others followed. They didn't say anything because they knew that Zhang Xiaoyaro was in a bad mood. When Zhang Xiaoyaro was in a bad mood, he wanted to kill. If the son of God of the Zhang family enters the barren heaven battlefield, won't Long Shuhuang and the others be finished? Who knows, but they definitely won't have an easy time. Some cultivators began to mourn for Long Shuhuang and the others. However, some people believed that with the strength of Long Shuhuang and the others, even if they could not defeat Zhang Xiaoyaro, they should still be able to escape. However, what puzzled everyone was that Zhang Xiaoyaro did not rush into the battlefield immediately. Instead, he stood with his hands clasped behind his back, and his eyes were as cold as the abyss. What is the son of God of the Zhang family doing? Everyone was astonished. Even utmost exalted Du Tuor felt this to be inconceivable. Could it be that Zhang Xiaoyaro didn't care about Jiang Shengyi's safety? At this moment, apart from the cold killing intent in Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes, there was also a little helplessness and a sigh. Sister Shengyi, you're too silly. Such a precious divine fetus, yet she had not allowed him to use it. Instead, she had risked her life to protect it, leaving it for him. Zhang Xiaoyaro knew that it was very difficult for him to fall in love with someone, let alone love someone to death. However, this didn't mean that Zhang Xiaoyaro was emotionless. Jiang Shengyi had already gone to this extent. How could Zhang Xiaoyaro remain indifferent? It was because of this that Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were filled with determination. In the next moment, he slowly raised his hand and activated the strength of a perfected saint to the extreme. Waves of sealing runes appeared in the void and spread across the entire barren heaven battlefield. All the cultivators saw that the sealing runes covered the galaxy and spanned across the battlefield. It was like an inverted bowl that was about to seal the entire barren heaven battlefield. Seal of the Immortal. Third seal. As Zhang Xiaoyaro finished speaking, the sealing power was completely unleashed. Endless divine light was released, trying to seal the entire barren heaven battlefield. With Zhang Xiaoyao's strength after his breakthrough, he could already use the third seal of the Immortal Seal. This seal was even more powerful than the second seal of the Immortal Seal. The Son of God of the Zhang family wants to seal the entire barren heaven battlefield. What is he doing? Seeing Zhang Xiaoyao's actions, the countless cultivators present were in an uproar. Since ancient times, no one had ever sealed the barren heaven battlefield like Zhang Xiaoyaro. Zhang Xiaoyaro was the first. The Son of God of the Zhang family, what are you doing? Supreme Du Tuor couldn't help but ask. He was in charge of maintaining order in the barren heaven battlefield. Zhang Xiaoyao's actions were undoubtedly breaking the rules. Close the door and kill the dog. Zhang Xiaoyaro simply uttered those 4 words, yet the murderous intent emanating from his words was hair-raising. The Son of God of the Zhang family is closing the door and killing the dog. He's not going to let anyone go. At this moment, everyone finally understood Zhang Xiaoyao's intentions. He sealed the entire barren heaven battlefield because he didn't want to let anyone who attacked Jiang Shengyi go. Anyone who tried to harm Jiang Shengyi had to die. Ruthless, too ruthless. The Son of God of the Zhang family is the most ruthless person in the world. Can he do it? Long Shuhuang and the others aren't the only ones dealing with Jiang Shengyi. There are hundreds of powerful cultivators and nearly 1,000 geniuses. Some of the geniuses couldn't help but shudder. Other than the geniuses who were chasing after Jiang Shengyi, there were also some powerful cultivators who were responsible for blocking the geniuses of the Jiang family and the Zhang family. If all of them were added together, there would definitely be more than 1,000 of them. Could Zhang Xiaoyaro kill all of them by himself? Most importantly, these geniuses were the elite seeds of the barren heaven mystic realm. If they all died in the barren heaven battlefield, wouldn't that mean that not many people would be able to step onto the ancient road of ultimate? Shouldn't the Son of God of the Zhang family restrain himself? Supreme Du Tuor felt a little anxious. If it were an ordinary genius doing this, he would have stopped him long ago. However, the one who did it was the Son of God of the Zhang family. This made him feel helpless. Don't provoke me, Zhang Xiaoyaro said coldly. He took a step forward, crossed the void, and stepped into the barren heaven battlefield. Like a lion entering a flock of sheep, he was about to start a massacre. Looking at Zhang Xiaoyao's back as he left, all the geniuses felt that something shocking was about to happen. Supreme Du Tuor's face was also extremely stiff. He was the dignified guardian of the imperial pass, yet he was ignored like this. However, when he thought of Zhun Xiaoyao's identity as the son of God of the Zhun family, he could only sigh helplessly. Are the young people nowadays all so immoral? Zhun Xiaoyao's actions were too ruthless. He sealed the entire barren heaven battlefield, leaving no way for others to survive. As the entire barren heaven battlefield was enveloped by the third seal of prohibition. The geniuses on the battlefield naturally felt it too. What's going on? Is the barren heaven battlefield going to be sealed in advance? Many geniuses were bewildered. Oh no, I'm afraid the situation has changed. Let's go to Long Shuhuang's side first. Some of the small giants who were attacking the geniuses of the Jiang family and the Zhun family also felt that something was wrong. Jiyu Yang, the successor of the Battle Demon Cave, Tian Yarou, the crown prince of the Jin dynasty, and the others all stopped fighting and rushed to Long Shuhuang's side. They felt that some kind of change might have happened. Let's go to Lord Grimm, Zhun Lingcang, and Zhun Mulan. Jiang Luoli, Jiang Tianyang, and the others all followed closely behind. In an instant, almost all the geniuses in the entire barren heaven battlefield gathered towards Long Shuhuang and Jiang Shengyi. At the same time, in the deepest part of the barren heaven battlefield, a vast ancient battlefield, like a giant island, was suspended in the void. 5 dazzling jade seals that emitted the aura of the heavenly way rotated in the air. They were the 5 seals of proving way. At this moment, a black-robed figure sat cross-legged on the side with a blood-stained sword on his lap. It was Yi Guchen. When the sealing runes covered the sky above the barren heaven battlefield, Yi Guchen's closed eyes slowly opened. Is it finally here? Yi Guchen's eyes were deep as he looked at the sky. Chapter 578. All the geniuses in the barren heaven battlefield knew that something must have happened. However, they had no idea that Zhun Xiaoyaro was the one who caused all of that. At this moment, in the depths of the battlefield, Long Shuhuang and the others, who were hunting Jiang Shengyi, also felt that something was wrong. What's with that sealing power? Is the barren heaven battlefield going to be closed in advance? No matter what, let's get the divine fetus first. Long Shuhuang and the others had made such a big move to get the divine fetus. No unforeseen event could interrupt their plan. Damn it, this woman is so stubborn. The descendant of the crocodile ancestors' face darkened. Jiang Shengyi's willpower was too strong. Even though she was suppressed by the 3 of them, she still fought with all her might. She used all the trump cards of the Jiang family, along with the 3 strands of divine qi and the carnate embryo. It would be troublesome for them to suppress her in a short time. At this moment, Long Shuhuang suddenly thought of something and said, Jiang Shengyi, I remember that you're Zhun Xiaoyao's aunt. TSK, this relationship. Shut up. Jiang Shengyi heard this and her emotions were stirred. Even her breathing became unstable. Before this, no matter what Long Shuhuang said, she wouldn't care. Her mind was firm. But when this was mentioned, Jiang Shengyi couldn't calm down. This wasn't a taboo thing, and she wasn't related to Zhun Xiaoyaro by blood. But if word got out, she would be criticized. Haha, Zhun Xiaoyao's charm is really strong. Even his aunt can't resist it. Seeing this, Long Shuhuang's eyes flashed and she continued to attack with obscenities. No matter how firm Jiang Shengyi's mind was, she was still a woman. She had already endured too much. How despicable. In the distance, even Yang Rumeng, Ji Qingyi, and the others frowned. Disgust flashed in their eyes. Long Shuhuang's methods were indeed despicable and didn't match her status as a genius. Jiang Shengyi's unstable state of mind was immediately caught by Long Shuhuang and the others. Dragon Phoenix Sky-Flipping Seal. The Dragon Illusionary Phoenix activated its ultimate move once again. A huge Dragon Phoenix seal appeared in the sky, bringing with it the might of 3 streaks of immortal qi as it came crashing down. Immortal Heavenly Phoenix / Huang Zhouyan slashed down with her phoenix feather blade. A crimson blade light that was tens of thousands of feet long slashed down like the wings of a divine phoenix. Savage Desolation Art. The crocodile ancestor's descendant also unleashed a powerful attack. Murderous aura overflowed into the heavens as he attacked. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of violent vibrations pierced everyone's eardrums. Sister Shengyi. In the distance, a blood-like cry of a cuckoo rang out. Jiang Luoli and the others had arrived. I'm too late. Lord Grimm and the others also arrived. Their expressions were grave. Of course, Jiyu Yang, the successor of the Battle Demon Cave, and the crown prince of the Jin dynasty had also rushed over. In the endless smoke and dust, the sound of coughing blood could be heard. As the smoke and dust dissipated, Jiang Shengyi's figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Her snow-white robe was stained with blood, and her fair chin was also dripping with blood. Cracks began to appear on her sparkling and translucent skin. She was like an exquisite porcelain that was beginning to crack. After taking 3 powerful moves from Long Shuhuang and the others, coupled with her unstable state of mind, Jiang Shengyi had suffered an unprecedented injury. She coughed up blood again, spitting out broken organs. Jiang Shengyi's heart meridians were directly shattered. If it weren't for the tenacity of a saint's vitality, Jiang Shengyi's physical body would have been destroyed. At this moment, the power of the carnate Tao embryo in Jiang Shengyi's body surged, as if it wanted to attract some kind of power. Suddenly, a crystalline divine fetus was pulled out of the spatial artifact by the power of the carnate Tao embryo. This divine fetus was incomparably clear, as if it contained a universe with dazzling galaxies, intertwining immortal Tao laws, and surging immortal qi. When this divine fetus appeared, Long Shuhuang and the others' eyes burned with passion, and even their breathing quickened. A divine fetus. At the very least, it was the energy source left behind by a remnant immortal. If refined, no matter how bad it was, it could cultivate 2 or 3 strands of immortal qi. This would be extremely beneficial for the future expedition on the ancient road of ultimate. The carnate Tao embryo had pulled the divine fetus out for Jiang Shengyi to refine. If Jiang Shengyi refined the divine fetus, not only would she be able to completely recover from her injuries, but her cultivation would also skyrocket, and she would be able to kill Long Shuhuang and the others. No. No. This divine fetus is for Xiaoyao. Jiang Shengyi continued coughing up blood, and the blood dripped onto the divine fetus. She held the divine fetus tightly with one hand. This was her gift to Jun Xiaoyao. Seeing this scene, even the passers-by who were watching the show couldn't help but reveal moved expressions on their faces. Sister Shengyi. Tears welled up in Jiang Luoli's eyes. Now, she didn't want to be jealous or envious. She only wanted Jiang Shengyi to survive this calamity. Kill, take the divine fetus. Long Shuhuang and the others' eyes were red. The 3 of them attacked again, suppressing Jiang Shengyi. Jiang Luoli, Jiang Tianyang, Lord Grimm, Jun Lingsang, Xiao Moxian, and the others all came to her aid. However, they were stopped by Jiyu Yang, the successor of Battle Demon Cave, the crown prince of the Jin dynasty, and other minor giants. There were more than 100 minor giants present. How terrifying was this number? Many of them had joined because they disliked Jun Xiaoyao. After all, Jun Xiaoyao had casually killed the sea god's 3rd prince, the Void Sword Master, and the others. They were all prodigies from the ancient star field. Subconsciously, they all thought of Jun Xiaoyao as a lofty person who looked down on the ancient starfield's prodigies like pigs and dogs. However, that was indeed the truth. Jun Xiaoyao did indeed see them as pigs and dogs. Splat. Blood flowed. Not only was Jiang Shengyi's snow-white robe stained with blood, but even her snow-white hair was dyed red. Jiang Shengyi, why are you so stubborn? Are you really willing to give up your life for this divine fetus? Feng Jiuyan shouted coldly. She held the supreme artifact Phoenix Featherblade and slashed down at Jiang Shengyi, who was no longer able to resist. Jiang Shengyi's delicate body cracked, and her physical body was about to collapse. If Feng Jiuyan's blade landed, Jiang Shengyi's body and primordial spirit would definitely be cut in half. However, Jiang Shengyi's lips curled into a blood-stained smile. I miss you so much that I will die 9 times for you without regret. Jiang Shengyi felt her vision blur. After being hunted for so long, she really wanted to rest and sleep. At this moment, a gentle voice, with a hint of a sigh, slowly rang in Jiang Shengyi's ears. Sister Shengyi, why are you so silly? Am I hallucinating? Jiang Shengyi's mind was groggy. She felt her delicate body being pulled into a warm embrace. A sense of peace that she had never felt before flowed in her heart, like a drifting boat returning to the harbor. Sister Shengyi, it's okay. Leave the rest to me. Chapter 579. At this moment, the entire barren heaven battlefield was dead silent. Time and space seemed to have frozen. All the sounds seemed to have disappeared. Everyone's eyes fell on the white-robed figure that had appeared. He was like an immortal white-robed god, crossing the void and arriving here. Huang Juoyan's full-powered attack was casually caught by the figure with 2 fingers. His other arm was wrapped around the beautiful woman in blood-stained snow-white clothes. Shocked expressions slowly appeared on the faces of all the geniuses. Jun Xiaoyao. It's the son of God of the Jun family. Countless shocked exclamations rang out from all directions. Everyone was shocked and took a deep breath. Jun Xiaoyao? Long Shuhuang and the others were also shocked. They did not expect Jun Xiaoyao to come out of the 19th level of hell. They did not expect him to arrive at the barren heaven battlefield so quickly. Jun Xiaoyao, you, Huang Juoyan was also shocked. His attack, which he had unleashed with all his might, was caught between 2 fingers by Jun Xiaoyao. One had to know that it was a supreme weapon. With the addition of his own strength, an ordinary saint would be split in half. However, Jun Xiaoyao blocked the attack with 2 fingers. Then, Huang Juoyan's expression suddenly froze. Because he saw the look in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes. As cold as ice. As cold as the abyss. That cold murderous intent seemed to be able to freeze the void for thousands of miles. Die. Jun Xiaoyao's words were like the judgment of the heavens. Vast divine power, accompanied by the power of the universe's origin, surged out of Jun Xiaoyao's body. Boom. Terrifying divine might burst, and the phoenix feather blade, which was a supreme weapon, crumbled inch by inch under Jun Xiaoyao's finger. The remaining force did not diminish and directly bombarded Huang Juoyan. Huang Juoyan's entire body was drowned in the vast divine light. Ah! A shrill scream was heard. Huang Juoyan's body exploded into pieces, and a bloody mist filled the sky. She had defeated Huang Juoyan in one move. The surrounding geniuses were stupefied. Their souls were trembling and their scalps were about to explode. Huang Juoyan, who had cultivated 3 strands of immortal qi, was actually unable to withstand a single blow from Jun Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao Gij. Xiaoyao. Lord Son of God. Young Master. Jiang Luoli, Lord Grim, Jun Lingtsang, Yang Qingying, Yi Yu, and the others were all excited. In the eyes of the enemy, Jun Xiaoyao was the Grim Reaper. In their eyes, he was the savior of the world. Xiaoyao. You're finally here. This is for you. Jiang Shengyi, who was held in Jun Xiaoyao's arms, smiled through his blood-stained lips. The person she had been longing for had finally arrived. Jun Xiaoyao had never disappointed anyone. She held the divine fetus, which was stained with her blood, and pushed it toward Jun Xiaoyao. There was a satisfied smile on her blood-stained face. Her body was about to collapse, and she was severely injured. Jiang Shengyi's first thought was to give the divine fetus to Jun Xiaoyao. Even someone as indifferent as Jun Xiaoyao was slightly touched at this moment. Sister Shengyi, let me take care of these bastards first. Jun Xiaoyao reached out to wipe away the blood on Jiang Shengyi's face. Jiang Shengyi nodded slightly. She, who was heavily injured, finally could not take it anymore and fainted. The black hair on Jun Xiaoyao's forehead covered his eyes. The woman in his arms had turned white overnight because of him. In order to give the divine fetus to him so that he could become stronger, she was willing to be hunted down and injured, rather than refine the divine fetus. Jun Xiaoyao felt that this was too much. And all he could do was for Jiang Shengyi, massacre the world. A terrifying and boundless aura spread out from Jun Xiaoyao's body. The aura of a saint at the peak of the great perfection covered the entire area. Heaven and earth shook, and the stars trembled. Many geniuses felt suffocated just by feeling this aura. Their bodies were about to be pressed to the ground. The son of God of the Jun family is actually a saint at the peak of the great perfection. This is too terrifying. In all directions, cries of shock rose and fell one after another. Zhang Xiaoyao, you. Long Shu Huang's expression changed drastically. Sensing this aura, his Taoist heart became unstable. No. I have the invincible dragon phoenix body. I will not lose, Long Shu Huang said to himself, gritting his teeth. The ferocious aura of the descendant of the crocodile ancestor was also suppressed by Zhang Xiaoyao's vast aura. He seemed to have turned from an ancient ferocious beast into a small insect. How is this possible? The descendant of the crocodile ancestor could not believe that Zhang Xiaoyao's strength had reached such a terrifying level. At this moment, Huang Zhuoyan, who had been beaten into a bloody mist, suddenly recovered in a burst of violent flames. It's the Phoenix life technique. Some geniuses' eyes flashed. Huang Zhuoyan cultivated the Phoenix life technique and could be reborn in a desperate situation 9 times. This was an extremely monstrous technique. Zhang Xiaoyao's move had helped Huang Zhuoyan to undergo the last nirvana. However, after being reborn in the flames, Huang Zhuoyan did not have the slightest hint of joy on his face. His face was as pale as paper, and there was still a trace of fear in his eyes. Just now, he was like an ant in Zhang Xiaoyao's hands. He had been casually crushed without any resistance. That feeling was like facing the vast heavens. Even if Huang Zhuoyan had undergone nirvana 9 times, his bloodline had transformed, and his strength had increased tremendously. But he felt that he was still an ant in front of Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao, do you think you can deal with all of us by yourself? Long Shu Huang shouted coldly. He wanted to pull all the geniuses of the small powerhouses onto his boat. Zhang Xiaoyao did not say a word. The entire barren heaven battlefield fell into an eerie silence. But it was this silence that was even more suffocating. Sweat appeared on the foreheads of Long Shu Huang and the others. Clearly, their hearts were not calm. Finally, Zhang Xiaoyao slowly raised a hand. A terrifying power that could destroy the world was surging out. Zhang Xiaoyao did not say anything to Long Shu Huang and the others. Because at this point, all ruthless words seemed pale and powerless. Blood and slaughter were the only things that could quell Zhang Xiaoyao's rage. In Zhang Xiaoyao's body, the power of the universe's origin surged out from the god's origin. At the same time, the power of sin surged. Light and darkness, the two powers, intertwined, fused, and gathered in Zhang Xiaoyao's hand. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyao was like a god of creation and destruction. God's light and God's punishment, the two great Tao of origin abilities, merged in his hands and burst forth with unprecedented power. Light of the 3 realms, I bestow life. With a thought, darkness, the world will fall. Zhang Xiaoyao hugged the unconscious Jiang Shengyi with one hand and raised his other hand high. The power of the two great Tao of origin abilities merged into one in his hands and burst forth with the power of destruction. Zhang Xiaoyao covered the sky with one hand and destroyed everything. Boom! An indescribable wave of destruction spread out with Zhang Xiaoyao as the origin. It was as if 100 nuclear bombs had exploded at the same time, or as if thousands of stars had exploded at the same time. The surrounding ground caved in, and thick cracks spread in all directions like canyons. None of them could escape from this apocalyptic wave. Zhang Xiaoyao's anger caused the world to sink and all living beings to die. Chapter 580. This destructive wave was like fate. No one could escape from it. However, this power was under Zhang Xiaoyao's control. Within this destructive wave, whoever he wanted to live would live. Whoever he wanted to die would die. No. Long Shu Huang and the others let out earth-shattering roars. They pushed their strength to the extreme. Long Shu Huang activated her ancestral dragon and divine phoenix bloodlines with all her might and unleashed a powerful move. Huang Zhuoyan also let out a long roar and used her ultimate move. The descendant of the crocodile ancestor revealed his true form and turned into a fierce crocodile covered in scales. He also used his full strength. Not only them, but all the geniuses who had participated in this encirclement plan were also resisting with all their might. There were also the small giants of the ancient star zone, such as Jiyu Yang, the successor of the Battle Demon Cave, and the crown prince of the Jin dynasty. They all used all their trump cards and tried their best to resist this destructive wave. But it was useless. Zhang Xiaoyao's all-out attack was extremely terrifying. One had to know that Zhang Xiaoyao had almost never used his full strength when fighting with others. Even when dealing with Yu Fuzi and the others, Zhang Xiaoyao had only used 40% of his strength and killed them easily. Now, however, Zhang Xiaoyao had unleashed all of his powers due to his extreme rage. He even used the two fused divine abilities of the Great Tao of Origin. Who would be able to block such power? Not to mention saints, even saint kings would have their bodies and primordial spirits exploded when facing Zhang Xiaoyao's destructive move. The destructive wave swept across the entire Barren Heaven battlefield like a wild wave. Not only the Barren Heaven battlefield, but even all the geniuses outside the Barren Heaven battlefield who were watching felt a terrifying power that made their scalps tingle and their bodies tremble. What kind of power is that? Could it be that there are some ancient strong cultivators sleeping in the Barren Heaven battlefield? Some cultivators were shocked, thinking that some ancient strong cultivators had awakened. As for Supreme Du Tuor, after sensing this power, he also took a deep breath. There was deep shock in his eyes. The son of God of the Jun family sure is generous. Du Tuor felt a headache coming on. When the Barren Heaven battlefield ended, who knew how many geniuses would be able to make it out alive? Closing the door and killing the dog was too ruthless. At that moment, in the Barren Heaven battlefield, Zhang Xiaoyao's one move had sunk almost half of the desolate heaven battlefield. Previously, Zhang Xiaoyao had used this move to pierce through Hell's Star. From this, it could be seen how powerful this move was. Whether it was Long Shu Huang, Huang Jiuyan, or the descendants of the crocodile ancestor, or Jiyu Yang, the successor of the Battle Demon Cave, or the crown prince of the Jin dynasty. None of them were able to block this move. Their bodies shattered inch by inch in the destructive fluctuations. No matter how they resisted, it was difficult for them to survive. Zhang Xiaoyao, aren't you afraid that Zulong and Wanhuang Spirit Mountain will start an immortal war if you kill us? The dragon phoenix struggled and shouted angrily. As the dragon phoenix body that had been carefully cultivated by the two forces, if he died, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Don't worry, they are already waiting for you in the Yellow Spring, Zhang Xiaoyao said coldly. What? His words shocked many geniuses. Their eyelids twitched. What did Zhang Xiaoyao mean? What is the meaning of this? Long Shu Huang shouted as she struggled with all her might. The immortal war has ended long ago. The four Archean royalty no longer exists. Zhang Xiaoyao's words made everyone fall silent. Many people were stunned and in disbelief. Of course, a small number of geniuses had vaguely heard some news, but they couldn't be sure. Now it seemed that the truth was indeed so. No, impossible. You are shaking my Dao heart. Long Shu Huang roared, not daring to believe this. How could the four Archean royalty all be destroyed? Huang Jiuyan and the descendant of the crocodile ancestor also couldn't believe it. However, it didn't matter whether they believed it or not. Zhang Xiaoyao didn't want to waste time talking nonsense with them. He activated his divine power to the extreme and merged the two great path of origin. The power was beyond Zhang Xiaoyao's imagination. In the end, when Zhang Xiaoyao stopped, the ground within a 10,000-mile radius was sunk. Countless cracks spread like canyons. As for the dragon phoenix and the others, they no longer existed. They were annihilated by this move. The three Archean royalty geniuses weren't the only ones. More than 100 giants, including Jiyu Yang, the descendant of the Battle Demon Cave, the crown prince of the Qianyao Jin dynasty, were also crushed. There were also nearly 1,000 powerful geniuses from the ancient star zone. They couldn't have survived. They all exploded into blood mist and drifted in the air. A blood-red wind blew across the entire Barren Heaven battlefield. It was the residual blood floating in the air. At this moment, all the remaining geniuses felt a chill run down their spines. It was as if their bodies were soaked in a bone-chilling icy spring. They asked themselves, if Zhang Xiaoyao's move was an indiscriminate attack, wouldn't they be in hell right now? Thinking of this, all the geniuses felt a chill run down their spines. Oh my god, one move, just one move, and the three Archean royalty geniuses, more than 100 giants, and nearly 1,000 geniuses are all dead. Those 100 giants were all saints. I can't believe they were killed by the son of God of the Jun family in one move. This is a record, isn't it? The voices of the geniuses from the barren heaven mystic realm were trembling. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The news of Jun Xiaoyaro killing 100 saints with one cauldron was not spread in the Emperor Road. However, all the geniuses had witnessed this scene with their own eyes. What you hear may be false, but what you see is true. What was happening in front of them was the most shocking. Even someone as scheming as Ji Qingyi took in a deep breath. She had already thought highly of Jun Xiaoyao. However, Jun Xiaoyao's improvement in strength had exceeded her expectations. Now, Ji Qingyi was glad that she had been cautious. Fortunately, she had not attacked Jiang Shengyi. She believed that if she had attacked him, she would have been in grave danger. There was no way Jun Xiaoyaro would go easy on her just because she was a beautiful woman. Now, do you still have doubts? Ji Qingyi asked Chen Fei, who was beside her. Chen Fei didn't say anything, and her face was slightly pale. To be honest, she was also stunned by Jun Xiaoyao's ruthless methods. He had killed 1,000 geniuses with one move, including more than 100 saints. What kind of strength was that? Furthermore, the aura emanating from Jun Xiaoyaro when he arrived earlier made her feel that he was even more sacred than her master. However, Chen Fei immediately bit her lip. She believed that if her master used his full strength, he would not be weaker than Jun Xiaoyao. After Jun Xiaoyaro killed the group of enemies with one move, he turned his attention to Jiang Shengyi. Jiang Shengyi was severely injured. His body was cracked, and his crystal-clear skin was full of cracks. His heart meridian was also shattered. This kind of injury was not good for a man, let alone a woman like Jiang Shengyi. Although Jiang Shengyi had a carnate Taoist embryo, the strengths of the carnate Taoist embryo were in Tao comprehension, divine powers, dharmic powers, and so on. It did not have much of a boost to the physical body. Therefore, Jiang Shengyi's physical injuries were very serious. Jun Xiaoyaro took out many supreme divine pills and precious medicines. He even took out more than one of the rare elixirs of immortality and refined them into Jiang Shengyi's body. However, Jiang Shengyi's situation was still not optimistic. Jun Xiaoyaro frowned slightly. Then, without hesitation, he used his fingers as a sword and cut his wrist. Drops of golden sacred blood dripped into Jiang Shengyi's cherry lips. Chapter 581. Jun Xiaoyao's body had the potential to become an emperor. Every drop of blood contained the power of creation and endless vitality. If an ordinary prodigy refined a drop of Jun Xiaoyao's blood, he would become a monstrous body-tempering prodigy. Even Jun Xiaoyaro himself thought that he had become Tang Sanzang's flesh. From this, it could be seen how precious Jun Xiaoyao's flesh and blood were. Jun Xiaoyao's expression did not change. He cut his wrist and the precious blood flowed into Jiang Shengyi's cherry lips. Some of the surrounding geniuses looked on with fervent eyes. Jun Xiaoyao's saint blood was no weaker than a great creation. If they could obtain it, their bodies would definitely be able to reach a higher level. However, at this moment, no one was stupid enough to have such thoughts. Jiang Luoli and the others also gathered around. She looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with her big eyes, her eyes filled with endless longing and longing. She had not seen Jun Xiaoyaro for a long time. Given her personality, she would have given Jun Xiaoyaro a big hug and latched onto him like an octopus when they finally met after such a long time apart. But now, as he looked at the unconscious and miserable Jiang Shengyi, he couldn't help but sigh. Looking at Jun Xiaoyaro who was cutting his wrist and feeding Jiang Shengyi with his saint blood. Jiang Luoli suddenly felt that she was a little redundant. Jiang Luoli, who had always been lively, was silent. She just stood by the side silently. The person she missed was so close, but she could not hug him. Xiaoyao, you're finally here. Lord Grimm and the others went forward to greet him. At the same time, they also looked at Jun Xiaoyaro in surprise. Jun Xiaoyao's strength shocked even Lord Grimm. Even someone as powerful as him would have had a hard time dealing with Jun Xiaoyaro at the moment. Master, Yang Qingying, Yi Yu, and the others went forward and cupped their hands. There was also a hint of admiration in their eyes. Their master was getting stronger and stronger. The two of them felt honored. Princess Longji bit her lip, Her expression complicated. She recalled that when she had just broken the seal and entered the world, she had only regarded Jun Xiaoyao as an ordinary heavenly son of the generation. Who would have thought that Jun Xiaoyao would grow to such a terrifying level? Even she, the princess of the dragon clan, could only look up at his back. I thought that I would be able to catch up to him if I stepped onto the emperor road ahead of time. In the end, haha, as proud as Princess Longji was, she was completely impressed. She had no choice but to admit defeat. It's still not enough, Jun Xiaoyao frowned. His sacred blood could help Jiang Shengyi recover from his physical injuries. However, it was unable to completely eradicate her hidden dangers. In this way, even if Jiang Shengyi recovered in the future, there would be a huge problem with his physical body, which would affect his Dao attainment in the future. Jiang Shengyi did this for Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao would never allow Jiang Shengyi to have any side effects. Perhaps I can merge this divine fetus into Sister Shengyi's body, Jun Xiaoyao murmured. With his monstrous talent, the divine fetus was just icing on the cake. At this moment, Jiang Luoli heard this and hesitated for a while. She bit her lip and said, "Brother Xiaoyao, Sister Shengyi did this to keep the divine fetus. If you do this, won't Sister Shengyi's efforts be in vain? I believe that when Sister Shengyi wakes up, she will definitely not want to see the divine fetus fused with her. This is her intention." Jun Xiaoyao was stunned by Jiang Luoli's words. He suddenly realized that this delicate and cute girl had matured a lot. Of course, it was only in terms of thinking. Her appearance was still the same as before. It was as if she had become a legal loli. That's right. Little brother Xiaoyao, if you do this, won't you be letting down Jiang Shengyi's intentions? Xiao Moxian also jumped up and said. She looked at Jun Xiaoyao with sparkling eyes. Her decision to form a relationship with Jun Xiaoyao was simply too correct. That's true, Jun Xiaoyao said. Then, he sent someone to call Xiao Xian and the others over from the edge of the barren heaven battlefield. While they were waiting, a discordant voice suddenly sounded. You are the son of God of the Jun family. You are indeed as the rumors say. You have some ability. Many people were surprised when they heard this voice. These words seemed to be praising Jun Xiaoyao, but they felt that they were disdainful and condescending. Everyone looked over and saw that it was a girl in a red dress beside Ji Qingyi. Who is that girl? How dare she speak to the son of God of the Jun family in such a tone? Sure. I heard that this girl is the follower of one of the outlawed sky prides. I see. No wonder she is so confident. Some people clicked their tongues. Not everyone could be called an outlawed sky pride. A true outlawed sky pride had to be at least a boundary emperor. This meant that if an outlawed sky pride did not die, they would at least reach the boundary emperor realm in the future. In fact, strictly speaking, Jun Xiaoyao was already qualified to be called an outlawed sky pride. Chen Fei, you. Ji Qingyi's eyes flashed. She did not expect Chen Fei to act on her own. Jun Xiaoyao ignored Chen Fei's words. His attention was now focused on Jiang Shengyi's body. He was using his sacred blood to sustain her body. He did not have the time to care about some random person. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao ignoring her, Chen Fei's expression changed slightly. As a follower of a taboo successor, she was respected everywhere. Although Jun Xiaoyao was powerful, he could not ignore her like this. Son of God of the Jun family, since you don't want to use the divine fetus, why don't you give it to my master? My master will definitely think highly of you. He might even make you his right-hand man. Chen Fei's words stunned many sky prides at the scene. Chen Fei's master was a terrifying and powerful outlawed sky pride in the future. However, Jun Xiaoyao was not a pushover either. His status and strength were definitely not weaker than that taboo successor. What was the meaning of asking Jun Xiaoyao to be that successor's right-hand man? Did this girl get kicked in the head by a donkey? Who knows? Those followers all think that their master is the strongest. It's normal for them to look down on other sky prides. Sounds of discussion could be heard from all directions. However, most of them were mocking Chen Fei, thinking that she was overestimating herself. Chen Fei's expression darkened when she heard the surrounding sky prides mocking. How dare you? Who do you think you are? Who does your master think he is? Yang Qingying yelled coldly and released her killing intent. In her mind, no one could be compared to Zhun Xiaoyao. I'm just telling the truth. You'll definitely benefit a lot if you can form a good relationship with my master, Chen Fei said lightly. Yang Qingying could not hold it in any longer. Her beautiful eyes were cold, like a dark queen. She attacked. The fallen wings on her back flapped as she activated the devouring god demonic technique and attacked Chen Fei directly. Chen Fei's expression changed. She did not expect Zhun Xiaoyao's follower to attack her. 2 streaks of immortal qi appeared on the surface of her body. Yang Qingying did the same. Boom. After dozens of exchanges, Yang Qingying used the devouring god demonic technique to suppress Chen Fei. She was going to refine her alive. No, you can't kill me. If you kill me, you'll be tainted with great karma. My master won't let you go, Chen Fei screamed. She did not expect Zhun Xiaoyao's follower to be so powerful. In the end, Chen Fei's body was crushed, ground, and devoured by the devouring vortex. The sacred body of the ancients is shackled by the heavens. You can't attain enlightenment. You're destined to be a supporting character for my master. Chen Fei let out a final scream of resentment. Then, she was completely refined into a ball of pure flesh and blood energy by Yang Qingying. Ji Qingyi, who was watching from the side, had no intention of helping at all. Chapter 582. Logically speaking, Ji Qingyi was also the assistant of the mysterious successor of the human immortal sect. She should have helped Chen Fei. At the very least, she should have protected her life. However, Ji Qingyi did not do that. Zhun Xiaoyao's attention was focused on Jiang Xingyi the entire time. He did not even bother with Chen Fei. However, Ji Qingyi believed that if she really intervened and protected Chen Fei, there was no doubt that Zhun Xiaoyao would crush him with lightning speed, or even kill him. Ji Qingyi had hidden her intentions well. Naturally, she would not do such a stupid thing. After killing Chen Fei, Yang Qingying turned around and knelt on one knee before Zhun Xiaoyao. She cupped her fists and said, "I'm sorry, young master. I was too impulsive. I might have offended a terrifying person because of this. Please punish me." Yang Qingying knew that the outlawed sky pride behind Chen Fei was definitely not an ordinary person. Even Zhun Xiaoyao might have trouble dealing with him. Zhun Xiaoyao finally said, "She's just courting death. It has nothing to do with you. As for the person behind her, I don't care." Zhun Xiaoyao's tone was low. He was not in a good mood. There should be some fish that escaped from the encirclement and did not come here. "I'll have to trouble you to kill them," Zhun Xiaoyao said. "Could it be that sealing power is?" Xiao Moxian covered her mouth in disbelief. "That's right. I set it up. Don't even think about escaping." Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes were as cold as ice. Many of the sky prides around felt a chill in their hearts. Messing with Zhun Xiaoyao meant that there was no way out for him. The situation was indeed as Zhun Xiaoyao had imagined. Some of the sky prides and minor figureheads who had participated in the encirclement did not appear here. They were frantically running away, trying to leave the desolate heaven battlefield. However, when they reached the edge, they encountered the third forbidden immortal seal. "What kind of sealing rune is this? Get out. I want to get out. Let me out. That Zhun Xiaoyao is a demon." No, he's even more terrifying than a demon. Many of the ancient Starfield sky prides and little tycoons were shouting in panic. Their minds were about to collapse. Zhun Xiaoyao's power was too terrifying. He had killed hundreds of sages and thousands of sky prides with one strike. It was like the arrival of the Grim Reaper. Azura exited seclusion. However, no matter what they did, they could not break the third seal. Looking at those struggling and roaring geniuses on the battlefield, the cultivators outside the battlefield felt a chill run down their spines. What did the divine child of the Zhun family do to anger the heavens and the people? Why would it cause such a reaction? Some of the cultivators outside were still unaware of the situation. Following that, Lord Grimm, Jiang Tianyang, and the rest of the geniuses from the 2 clans began to slaughter the fleeing geniuses. Anyone who participated in the encirclement and suppression plan? Even if they were just here to join in the fun, none of them would be left alive. They were all killed. The entire barren heaven battlefield was littered with corpses and the ground was dyed red with blood. It could be said that the barren heaven battlefield this time, it was bloodier and crueler than any of the previous ones. And the source of the bloodshed? It was Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro was angry. Corpses were everywhere. Sigh, with so many dead geniuses, the barren heaven mystic realm will probably be in chaos again. But with the means of the Jun family, the Jiang family, and the Jun Emperor's Hall, it will only be a small disturbance. Du Tuor looked at the bloody scene in front of him and shook his head slightly. Even if the other geniuses were capable, they would not dare to kill so wantonly. Only Jun Xiaoyaro had the confidence to be so presumptuous without any scruples about the consequences. Not long after, Xiao Xian and the others arrived. As soon as they arrived, Jun Xiaoyaro said to Xiao Xian, "Let out your blood." "WH? What?" Xiao Xian looked dazed. "Cut your wrists," Jun Xiaoyaro said. Xiao Xian immediately cried. Celestial spiritual liquid kept flowing out of her eyes. "Big brother, are you going to eat me? What did I do wrong?" "Boo-hoo!" Xiao Xian cried and said. "I will compensate you with the qi of all creation when the time comes," Jun Xiaoyaro said. "Really?" Xiao Xian only stopped crying when the qi of all creation was mentioned. Tears stained her eyelashes. For her, the qi of all creation was very attractive. Under Jun Xiaoyao's soft and hard attacks, Xiao Xian still let out her blood. Her blood was not red. Instead, it was sparkling and translucent. It emitted a fragrance that made people who smelled it feel as if they were floating in the air. Jun Xiaoyao's sacred blood and Xiao Xian's blood, the king of immortal marrow. No matter how serious Jiang Shengyi's physical injuries were, he recovered. But this is still not enough. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. With such a rescue, Jiang Shengyi's life was not in danger, but there would be hidden injuries in his physical body, which would be detrimental to his cultivation in the future. Thinking of this, Jun Xiaoyaro pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly used his fingers as a sword and cut open his chest. "Brother Xiaoyaro." Seeing this scene, Jiang Luoli's little face turned pale. The others were also moved. In Jun Xiaoyao's chest, in addition to the sparkling bone of supremacy, there was also a beating heart. The heart of the sacred body of the ancients. Jun Xiaoyao's body trembled slightly, and drops of sacred body blood essence condensed. This sacred body blood essence was not the same as the sacred blood from before. Sacred body blood essence could only be condensed in the heart of a sacred body. This was the source of the vast qi and blood essence of a sacred body. After forcing out more than 10 drops of sacred body blood essence, even with Jun Xiaoyao's strength, his face was slightly pale and his lips were as white as paper. Of course, this was only temporary. Jun Xiaoyao's physical body was almost flawless, and he had the physique of an emperor. It would not be long before his sacred body blood essence was condensed again. However, when this scene fell into the eyes of the others, they were extremely shocked. He cut open his chest and forced out the sacred body blood essence in his heart. What kind of sacrifice was this? However, Jun Xiaoyao's face did not show any trace of pain. His eyes were as calm as water, as if he had just done something insignificant. He would not lick any woman. However, this was what he should do as a man. "Brother Xiaoyaro." Jiang Luoli's heart clenched as she watched from the side, her eyes filled with tears. At this moment, she suddenly felt a little envious of Jiang Shengyi. If the person who fell was me, would Brother Xiaoyaro save me like this? Jiang Luoli said to herself. The sacred body blood essence was refined into Jiang Shengyi's body and finally gathered in his heart. With this, Jiang Shengyi's body would slowly recover. Not only would it not leave any sequelae, but it would also make up for the shortcomings of Jiang Shengyi's physical body. In the future, Jiang Shengyi's physical body might not be comparable to the sacred body of the ancients, but it would definitely surpass most of the body-refining geniuses. Jiang Shengyi's injuries were stabilized. Jun Xiaoyaro also breathed a sigh of relief. To him, even if he killed thousands of geniuses with one move, if anything happened to Jiang Shengyi, he would still feel guilty. And now, he could finally put his heart at ease. However, When this news spread out of the barren heaven battlefield, it caused a shocking storm. Chapter 583. Many of the geniuses that Jun Xiaoyaro had killed had powerful backgrounds. All of them were heroes of their respective ancient star zones. Even though the Archean royalty behind Long Shuhuang and the others had been destroyed. But when the forces of the ancient star zones behind those geniuses joined forces, they were still an extremely terrifying force. After such a bloody massacre on the barren heaven battlefield, even the guardian of Hanggu Pass, Supreme Du Tuor, couldn't hide it. He could only tell the truth and send the news back to the Huangtian mystic realm. Otherwise, if he continued to hide it, it would cause even greater waves. As expected. When the news was sent back to the Huangtian mystic realm, it undoubtedly caused a huge commotion. This time, Jun Xiaoyaro didn't kill 1 or 2 people, or more than a dozen people. It was thousands of geniuses. Among them, there were more than 100 small giants. When the forces behind these people joined forces, they could even shake the entire Huangtian mystic realm. It's too hateful. My son died so easily. The son of God of the Jun family is too ruthless. The ruler of the Jin dynasty roared angrily. It was the emperor of the Tianyaro Jin dynasty. The successor of the Battle Demon Cave has also died. The son of God of the Jun family is too overbearing. That's right. The talents of the Tianfang ancient star zone have also died. This hatred must be avenged. Previously, the Jun family also destroyed the ancient Sea King star zone and killed the Swordmaster of the Void. They don't take us seriously at all. Many forces of the ancient star zones around the Huangtian mystic realm expressed their anger. Although the Emperor's court had destroyed the ancient Sea King star zone before, many forces were shocked. But now, it wasn't just 1 or 2 forces who were dissatisfied. It was a large group of forces of the ancient star zones who were dissatisfied. However, before these forces of the ancient star zones could unite, there was movement in the Huangtian mystic realm. More than 10 imperial weapons rose into the sky. The Emperor's Mirror, the Earth Emperor's Book, the Emperor's Brush, and the other 3 imperial weapons. There were also the Pan Huang Sword, the Kailin Wheel, the Phoenix Wing Golden Centipede, the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Disc, the Neptune's Trident, and other imperial weapons. Waves of majestic imperial might swept across the Huangtian mystic realm and pressed towards the surrounding ancient star zones. On the Emperor's road, life and death do not matter. Your descendants are all trash. It is already an honor for you to be killed by the Son of God. How dare you be dissatisfied? In the Jun family, an old man stepped forward and stood in the sky. Chaotic chi wrapped around his body, and his might shook the surroundings. His domineering voice. It spread through the void of the universe. It was none other than Jun Tianming, one of the 8 ancestors of the Jun family, who possessed the cultivation of the chaotic Tao Master. Jun Tianming didn't fall into a deep sleep after the Battle of the Immortals ended. Instead, he stayed in the Jun residence to prevent any further disturbances. Now, the ancient star domains were in chaos, ready to make a move. Jun Tianming stepped forward. Chaos Tao Master's cultivation? This was enough to intimidate everyone. What's more, there were more than 10 imperial weapons. It was so bright that it blinded everyone's eyes. In the Huangtian mystic realm, many forces were shocked. In the other direction, the Jiang family, another figure appeared. It was you who besieged the goddess of the Jiang family first, but you were killed by my grandson in the end. How dare you bark now? A supreme great ancestor of the Jiang family stepped into the sky. Was he Jun Xiaoyao's grandfather? Jiang Daoshu, the supreme great ancestor of the Jiang family. Why waste your breath? If anyone is dissatisfied, just kill them. A bronze temple filled with an ancient aura appeared in the sky above the Huangtian mystic realm. The supreme elder of the monarch imperial court, an old blind man, and the others appeared with indifference. They hadn't had enough fun destroying the ancient star domain of the Sea King. For a moment, the entire Huangtian mystic realm trembled. The Jun family, the Jiang family, and the monarch imperial court, the 3 immortal forces, spoke at the same time. Coupled with the pressure of a dozen imperial weapons, the deterrence was unimaginable. One had to know that the Jiang family didn't even interfere in the previous battle of the immortals. But now, even the Jiang family couldn't sit still. As one of the three imperial families, the Jiang family's foundation was among the top among the immortal forces. It wasn't much weaker than the Jun family. For a moment, some of the voices in the ancient star domain quieted down. There were even some strong cultivators who were trembling. Damn it, a dozen imperial weapons were used at once. This was simply unethical. Besides, there was also Dao Master Hun Dun. It was almost impossible for such a strong cultivator to appear in some of the ancient star domains. Therefore, the forces in the ancient star domain were terrified. Jun Tianming, the eighth patriarch, stood on the Milky Way with his hands behind his back and yelled, "Who else?" His voice was so loud that it shattered many stars in the starry sky. None of the forces responded. Even the emperor of the Jin dynasty and the cultivators of the Battle Demon Cave, who were furious before, were completely silent. "Humph, a bunch of cowards," Jun Tianming snorted and left in a huff. TSK, what a pity. It would have been better if they had fought." The parrot shook its head in disappointment. A possible riot was quelled just like that. This also showed the forces in the Huangtian mystic realm how powerful the Jun family was. I don't think anyone would object to the Jun family being the most powerful force in the Huangtian mystic realm, right? Some people were discussing. I've heard that when the Jun family was at its peak, they seemed to want to replace the Supreme Xian Ting and control the order of the Nine Heavens mystic realm. Replacing the Supreme Xian Ting? Isn't that a bit too much? The Jun family is indeed powerful, but I heard that the Supreme Xian Ting is related to the will of the mystic realm. Many old antiques talked about this secret. In other words, the Supreme Xian Ting was equivalent to the official force. It was not easy for the Jun family to replace it. However, according to some ancient records, the Jun family seemed to be close to success a long time ago, but they failed for some reason in the end. Some old antiques and living fossils sighed when they talked about this secret history. If there was a force that could become the leader of the Nine Heavens mystic realm, the Jun family was definitely the most likely one. Of course, there were other powerful ancient forces, such as the Dragon King Palace, the Gulan sect, and the lineage of the Underworld King. They would not sit back and watch the Jun family dominate the Nine Heavens mystic realm. Since the collapse of the Supreme Xian Ting, many ancient forces wanted to take control of the Nine Heavens mystic realm. Let's not talk about this for now. I heard that there might be a successor of the Supreme Xian Ting's taboo on the ancient road of ultimate, TSK. It would be interesting if the successor of the Supreme Xian Ting's taboo met the son of God of the Jun family. That's right. Doesn't this mean that the Jun family and the Supreme Xian Ting are fighting for luck? Some old antiques talked among themselves. They felt that the most intense clash would not be on the Emperor Road, but on the ancient road of ultimate. The ancient road of ultimate must be much more exciting than the Emperor Road. The waves in the Huangtian mystic realm calmed down. Even Supreme Du Tuor was shocked when he heard the news. He then shook his head with a wry smile. It seemed that he had been worrying too much. It would be a piece of cake for the Jun family and other forces to suppress these small waves. Inside the Huangtian battlefield, after all the geniuses who had participated in the encirclement were killed, the entire battlefield calmed down a little. Jun Xiaoyaro also removed the third anti-immortal seal. However, the remaining geniuses did not leave. That was because the battle was not over yet. There was one last thing that everyone was curious about. It was the battle between Yi Guchen and Jun Xiaoyaro on the Emperor Road. Chapter 584. There were 9 Emperor Roads in the Nine Heavens celestial realm. Each Emperor Road would produce an Emperor Road King, who represented the highest combat strength of the Emperor Road. To a certain extent, they also represented the fortune of the celestial realm. Whoever could become the Emperor Road King would be blessed by the fortune of the Huangtian celestial realm. This kind of blessing seemed illusory, but it was real. The Emperor Road of the Huangtian celestial realm had reached this point. There were only 2 people who had the highest chance of becoming the Emperor Road King. Yi Guchen, who ranked first on the Huangtian Saint ranking, and Jun Xiaoyaro, the son of God of the Jun family. The battle between Yi Guchen and Jun Xiaoyaro had spread throughout the entire Emperor Road. Therefore, the remaining geniuses did not leave the Huangtian battlefield. They were all looking forward to the battle between Yi Guchen and Jun Xiaoyaro. They also wanted to know who would become the Emperor Road King in the end. Why do I feel that the son of God of the Jun family has a higher chance of winning? That move of his was so destructive. I think so too, but Yi Guchen is not bad either. He cut off the past and reconstructed his true self. Not everyone has such courage and perseverance. That's right. Yi Guchen also hid his strength well. When he fought, he almost always killed his opponents with a single move. This is getting interesting. Many geniuses in the Huangtian battlefield were discussing. They were paying close attention to the movements of Yi Guchen and Jun Xiaoyaro. On Jun Xiaoyao's side, he temporarily placed Jiang Shengyi in a cave full of spiritual qi. At this rate of recovery, Jiang Shengyi should be able to wake up in a few days. The remaining sequences of the Jun family, the geniuses of the Jiang family, and their followers gathered together. Jun Xiaoyaro was also very simple. He told everyone some things that happened before he stepped onto the Emperor Road. He also told them about the details of the Battle of the Immortals. After hearing this, everyone sighed with emotion. He did not expect such a big thing to happen in the Huangtian mystic realm after they set foot on the Imperial Road. After that, Yi Yu said, "Young master, since Yi Guchen wants to fight with you, why didn't he come directly to you?" Hearing this, everyone pricked up their ears to listen. After all, the thing that everyone was most concerned about was the battle between the two strongest individuals. Jun Xiaoyaro thought for a moment and said, "That's because he's waiting for me to find him." This answer left the crowd somewhat puzzled. Jun Xiaoyaro continued, "He wants me to have time to adjust my state and mood, and then face him in the most perfect state. So that's how it is." Everyone was enlightened. This Yi Guchen was a man of martial ethics. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, did not mind. He didn't need to adjust his state at all. He could fight under any circumstances. But Yi Guchen's attitude? Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, was rather impressed. Such an opponent. Only then was he qualified to make him take him seriously. For someone like Long Shuhuang, Jun Xiaoyaro felt that it was a waste of breath to say another word. In the following time, Jun Xiaoyaro was not in a hurry to find Yi Guchen to fight. Instead, he stayed by Jiang Shengyi's side. Jun Xiaoyaro himself was not sure how he felt about Jiang Shengyi. Guilt. Pity. Perhaps they were all alike. The road ahead was long. Jun Xiaoyao's goal was very big. He still had to walk to the end of the ancient road of ultimate to find the heavenly book and the hidden branch of the Jun family. He still had to find his father. Go to the foreign realm? Go to the burial realm? Go to the realm sea? Before that, he would not stop for anyone. But Jiang Shengyi was indeed a person who made one's heart ache. Looking at Jiang Shengyi's quiet and beautiful face when she was sleeping, Jun Xiaoyaro was silent. A few days later, Jiang Shengyi's curled eyelashes trembled slightly. Then, her limpid eyes slowly opened. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw the person she thought about day and night. Jiang Shengyi's lips curled into a weak smile. Although her body was more or less fine, she still needed to recuperate for a period of time to completely recover. "Xiaoyao, I had a dream, a very, very long dream. In the dream, we traveled all over the immortal realm. We went to see the mountains, the sea, the galaxy, and the mortal world." Jiang Shengyi's smile was as beautiful as 100 flowers blooming. "Sister Shengyi, Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to say something. However, Jiang Shengyi gently raised her jade-like arm and tapped Jun Xiaoyao's lips with her jade finger. "There's no need to say anything. I'm willing to do everything. I don't need you to do anything for me, Xiaoyaro," Jiang Shengyi said. She would not ask Jun Xiaoyaro to do anything to her. She knew that Jun Xiaoyao's journey was the sea of stars. She could not drag Jun Xiaoyaro down. She was even willing to be Jun Xiaoyao's right-hand man and help him silently without asking for anything in return. Seeing such a considerate Jiang Shengyi, even Jun Xiaoyaro was slightly touched. He said, "Sister Shengyi, when I return from the ancient road, I will give you a promise." Hearing this, Jiang Shengyi's delicate body trembled, and tears flashed in her eyes. Would it be the promise she was looking forward to? After that, seeing that Jiang Shengyi had woken up, Jiang Luoli and the others also came to visit. Sister Shengyi, I'm so glad you're okay. Jiang Luoli threw herself into Jiang Shengyi's arms. Luoli. Jiang Shengyi stroked Jiang Luoli's little head. At this moment, the barrier between them seemed to have dissolved. It's all my fault for not being able to save Sister Shengyi. Jiang Luoli blamed herself. She felt that she was really a useless little girl. It's not your fault, Jiang Shengyi said with a smile. Fortunately, the ending is perfect. Nothing happened. If Xiao Yarou could defeat Yi Jiu Chen, it would be even more perfect, Lord Grimm said with a smile. With cousin Xiaoyao's cultivation, it shouldn't be a problem, Zhun Lingcang also said with a smile. He was very confident in Zhun Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao, are you going to fight with the reincarnation of the sword demon? Jiang Shengyi was very concerned. It's okay. Zhun Xiaoyao didn't take it seriously. He did see Yi Guchen as a real opponent, but it didn't mean that Yi Guchen could threaten him. By the way, why do I feel that my body is better than before? Jiang Shengyi was very confused. Although she was weak now, she could feel that her body had undergone a qualitative change. It was much better than before. That's because Xiao Yarou refined the holy Physique's blood essence from his heart into your body, Lord Grimm said. Xiao Yao, why are you so reckless? Is there anything wrong with you? Jiang Shengyi's complexion changed. Her jade-like hands stroked Zhun Xiaoyao's chest, carefully inspecting it. She was afraid that because of her own problems, something would happen to Zhun Xiaoyao's body. If that happened, she would regret it for the rest of her life. Cough cough, you guys take your time talking. I'll be leaving first. Lord Grimm dryly coughed. I'll also be leaving. Zhun Lingcang smiled. Let's go, let's go. Nine-headed lion joined in on the fun, a cheap smile on his face. Aya, I really don't want to eat dog food anymore. Xiao Moxian also cried out as she left. Only Jiang Luoli's big eyes had a hint of gloominess. She squeezed out a smile and said, then Luo Li will also be leaving. Just as she was about to leave, Jiang Shengyi grabbed her wrist and said, Luo Li, you haven't seen Xiao Yarou in a long time. Stay and talk. Jiang Luoli bit her lips and nodded. It was impossible for her to say that she didn't miss Zhun Xiaoyao. It was just that she felt that it was a bit inappropriate. Jiang Luoli looked at Zhun Xiaoyao with hidden bitterness, her heart a bit low. Looking at the two beauties in front of him, one big and one small. Zhun Xiaoyao had a strange feeling in his heart. He clearly hadn't done anything, so why did he feel like he was a bit of a scum? Chapter 585. The next few days were warm and uneventful. Ever since Zhun Xiaoyao stepped onto the path of Imperial God, he had been pushing his way through the battlefield without stopping for even a moment. Although Zhun Xiaoyao was used to this kind of life, he still felt a little tired. Zhun Xiaoyao spent the past few days in a relaxed manner. He had nothing to do, so he chatted with Jiang Shengyi and Jiang Luoli. Otherwise, he would spar with Lord Grimm, Zhun Lingcang, and the others, or give pointers to the other sequences of the Zhun family. Although Zhun Xiaoyao was of the younger generation, he had a monstrous comprehension ability. His understanding of cultivation was even deeper than some of the older generations. Therefore, some of the geniuses of the Zhun family and the Jiang family were enlightened under Zhun Xiaoyao's guidance, and their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Later on, many of the geniuses who stayed in the Barren Heaven battlefield came because of Zhun Xiaoyao's reputation. They wanted to get some pointers from him. Zhun Xiaoyao was not stingy. He started to preach, attracting many geniuses from all over. To him, these preachings were just a drop in the ocean. Zhun Xiaoyao's casual enlightenment was enough for the other geniuses to study for a long time. When Zhun Xiaoyao preached, flowers fell from the sky and golden lotuses bloomed on the ground. Lines of the great path intertwined in the void, and divine light surged. It was as if he was explaining the ultimate truth of the world. For a time, Zhun Xiaoyao's reputation among the geniuses of the Emperor Road skyrocketed. Those geniuses who said Zhun Xiaoyao's methods were too extreme were now sitting under Zhun Xiaoyao's seat devoutly. They listened to his guidance quietly with a satisfied look on their faces. Even Supreme Du Tuor came to listen to Zhang Xiaoyao's preaching. This caused a large group of prodigies to be taken aback. Who would have thought that even a Supreme would come to listen to Zhang Xiaoyao's preaching? After listening, Supreme Du Tuor could not help but sigh. The student had surpassed the master. Even though he was a 9 Heavens Supreme, he still benefited a lot from it. At the same time, Du Tuor was also impressed by Zhang Xiaoyao's methods. A simple favor from Zhang Xiaoyao was all it took to erase the fact that he had mercilessly slaughtered thousands of geniuses in one stroke. Now, no one said that Zhang Xiaoyao was a homicidal maniac anymore. They all regarded Zhang Xiaoyao as their teacher. He thanked her profusely and respected her greatly. In the following period of time, Zhang Xiaoyao was free to preach the Tao. If he had nothing to do, he would watch the two lolis, Jiang Luoli and Xiao Moxian, bicker. Xiao Xian on the other hand, was out of Zhang Xiaoyao's expectations. She actually knew how to cozy up to him. Sister Shengyi, you're so beautiful. Sister Shengyi. Back then, Xiao Xian also bled to save you. Sister Shengyi. I feel like Big Brother Xiaoyao wants to eat me. Looking at her head full of silvery hair, sparkling and tender as snow. Xiao Xian was like a porcelain doll. Jiang Shengyi's motherly love overflowed. There was no need to mention how much she liked her. Xiaoyao, you cannot refine Xiao Xian Jiang Shengyi said. Zhang Xiaoyao was left speechless. He had indeed planned to fatten Xiao Xian up and then refine her. But this girl had also turned into a thief. She even knew how to form alliances and win over allies. Don't worry. Xiao Xian can also be considered Big Sister Shengyi's savior. I naturally won't do that. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled at Xiao Xian But Xiao Xian felt a chill run down her spine. She thought that Zhang Xiaoyao was not giving up on his evil intentions. And on the other side, the 9-headed lion cast a sidelong glance at them and whispered, "Why do I feel like they're a family of 3? Sure. You saw through me but didn't say anything. It seems that I can only think of a way to become Big Brother Xiaoyao's concubine in the future." Xiao Moxian mumbled. What nonsense are you spouting, shameless woman? Jiang Luoli glared at her. Aya, no matter how shameless I am, I'm still better than a certain loser, right? Xiao Moxian said sarcastically. The so-called loser was naturally referring to Jiang Luoli. Stinking woman, who are you calling a loser? I want to fight you. Jiang Luoli's hair stood on end, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She, lowly Jiang, would never admit that she was a loser. Time slowly passed. Zhang Xiaoyao enjoyed a rare moment of peace. None of the geniuses had left the desolate heaven battlefield. They were all looking forward to the final battle. Xiaoyao, the reincarnation of the sword demon, cannot be underestimated. He has hidden his strength very deeply. It can be said that he has never used his full strength on the Emperor's road. Lord Grimm warned. Lord Grimm was also very strong. If he wanted to compete for the Emperor's road, he could definitely compete with Yi Guchen. However, even Lord Grimm did not have full confidence that he could defeat Yi Guchen. This sword demon, who had severed his past and reconstructed his true self, had hidden his strength very deeply. He was extremely terrifying. Jiang Shengyi stepped forward and said, "That's right, Xiaoyao, you have not refined the divine fetus. If you do, your chances of winning will be greater." Looking at Jiang Shengyi, who had yet to recover her vitality and was still a little pale, Zhang Xiaoyao shook his head and said, "Sister Shengyi, your innate Tao fetus is the most compatible with the divine fetus. If you refine it, you will make great progress. If I refine it, it will only be icing on the cake." Zhang Xiaoyao's words were the truth. Although the divine fetus was also very useful to him, it was obviously more useful to Jiang Shengyi. "No, Xiaoyao, this is a gift from me. You can't reject it." Jiang Shengyi put on a serious face and said seriously, "Can you guys consider my feelings?" Lord Grimm coughed dryly and said. As a single dog, he had been shown off in front of everyone. "Master, you have the sacred body of the ancients, and the goddess of the Jiang family has the innate Tao fetus. Why can't you two cultivate together, the nine-headed lion suddenly said. At that moment, everyone's eyes suddenly turned to the nine-headed lion. What's wrong? The nine-headed lion's 9 faces were all stunned. You're quite a clever little brat, Xiao Moxian muttered. Even Jun Xiaoyaro was slightly stunned. He had not thought of this. Logically speaking, he had the sacred body of the ancients, and Jiang Xingyi had the innate Tao fetus. If they cultivated together, it would indeed have an amplifying effect. Moreover, they had the divine fetus as support. If the two of them cultivated the great path together, the effect would definitely be off the charts. But wasn't this the same as cultivating together? Jiang Xingyi had obviously thought of this as well. Her beautiful face instantly blushed a soul-stirring crimson. This is not a bad idea. Jun Lingcang and the others nodded in agreement. Naturally, they also hoped that Jun Xiaoyaro could defeat Yi Guchen and win the title of King of the Emperor Road. However, Jiang Luoli, Yang Qingying, Princess Longji, Xiao Moxian, and the other girls felt a little jealous. However, they also hoped that Jun Xiaoyaro could become stronger, so they did not object. Sister Shengyi, Jun Xiaoyaro was just about to say that this was a little inappropriate. Jiang Xingyi lowered her head slightly and whispered, Xiaoyao, I can do it. The beauty lowered her head and smiled shyly. She was very charming. Okay. Jun Xiaoyaro was not a procrastinator. Since Jiang Xingyi had agreed, why should he, as a man, have any scruples? Then, everyone left to avoid arousing suspicion. Jun Xiaoyaro and Jiang Xingyi found a cave with abundant spiritual energy and prepared to refine the divine fetus. Cultivating together with Jiang Xingyi gave Jun Xiaoyaro a strange feeling. He remembered a story from his previous life. A certain genius surnamed Yang cultivated the Jade Girl Heart Sutra with his aunt. Chapter 586. Of course, Jun Xiaoyaro had no other intentions. He simply wanted to use the divine fetus to improve his cultivation with Jiang Xingyi. Sister Xingyi, it's time to start, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Okay. Jiang Xingyi's expression also became more solemn. However, there was still a trace of redness on her beautiful face that was as bright as the sunset glow. Jun Xiaoyaro took out the divine fetus. The entire divine fetus was enshrouded in divine qi and shone brightly. There were mysterious Tao patterns intertwining and the aura of the great path flowing. It made people feel as if they were about to have an epiphany and understand the truth of the world. So this is the power of immortals. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were burning with passion. There was no admiration, or yearning in his eyes. Because to him, becoming an immortal was a goal he would definitely achieve. So there was nothing to be envious of. What he needed to do was to take one step at a time toward this goal. When the divine fetus appeared, the innate Taoist fetus in Jiang Xingyi's body seemed to resonate and began to release Tao patterns and tremble. The innate Taoist fetus was the favored child of heaven and earth. A divine object like the divine fetus was the most suitable for Jiang Xingyi to refine. Sister Xingyi, you don't have to suppress the power of your innate Taoist fetus, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Jiang Xingyi nodded and completely released the power of her innate Taoist fetus. In an instant, Jiang Xingyi's entire body shone with divine light, like a fairy who was about to ascend. What was even more bizarre was that Jun Xiaoyao's body began to emanate boundless divine light as well. The sacred body of the ancients and the innate Taoist fetus were physiques that could attract and resonate with each other. The innate Taoist fetus of the innate Taoist fetus of the two was a super physique that could be ranked in the top 5 among the 3,000 physiques. Since ancient times, there had only been a handful of them. Jun Xiaoyaro did not have any scruples and activated the power of his sacred body of the ancients. The power of the sacred body of the ancients merged with the power of the innate Taoist fetus. The feeling was indescribable. It was as if he had reached some kind of climax. Jun Xiaoyaro was still fine. His expression was calm as he focused on refining the divine fetus. On the other hand, Jiang Xingyi's face was as red as snow. She bit her lips and tried her best not to make any strange sounds. After all, in some aspects, it was usually the girls who screamed happily, while the boys hardly said anything. The power of the two merged together, and the power of the primordial spirit was released as well, mixing in the void. The divine fetus unleashed a tremendous amount of energy in an instant. Immortal light surged like a tide. The energy swept out, and in an instant, Jun Xiaoyao and Jiang Xingyi's clothes melted away like snow in spring. In the next moment, they were honest with each other. Jun Xiaoyao's body was perfect and flawless, as if he was the most perfect piece of art carved by the heavens. Every inch of his body was glowing with immortal light. Jiang Xingyi's skin and bones were also as white and translucent as snow. She was like a beauty carved from jade. Her previous injuries had long since disappeared without a trace. Her jade-like body was as white and delicate as ivory, without a single flaw. Ah! Jiang Xingyi couldn't help but let out a low cry. She closed her beautiful eyes, her eyelashes trembling slightly, and her face flushed red. This was the first time she revealed her body in front of the opposite sex. Previously, she had mistakenly consumed the tea that Jiang Luoli had drugged, and she had done something ridiculous with Jun Xiaoyao. But she had only done that, and hadn't done anything excessive. But now, they were honest with each other. Jiang Xingyi's beautiful eyes were tightly shut, and her heart was pounding wildly. Even someone as mature and intelligent as her couldn't help but feel a little flustered when faced with such a situation. At this moment, Jiang Xingyi was exceptionally beautiful, like a fairy from Moon Palace. Such a pure and holy fairy was now honest with each other. The temptation was indescribable. Jun Xiaoyao wasn't a saint. He glanced at her and sighed slightly. She looked thin with clothes on, but muscular without them. Sister Xingyi, focus. Refining the divine fetus is the most important thing, Jun Xiaoyao said. Art was worth admiring, but the most important thing right now was to refine the divine fetus. Jiang Xingyi also opened her beautiful eyes, trembling. It was too big. Jiang Xingyi's heart was beating even faster. Jun Xiaoyao's certain parts made women feel pressured. However, Jiang Xingyi was also a proud daughter of the heavens. Her mind was very stable, and she quickly calmed down. This was nothing. She could accept it if she gritted her teeth and persevered. Jiang Xingyi encouraged herself in her heart. She would work hard to become Jun Xiaoyao's shape. Jun Xiaoyao naturally didn't know what Jiang Xingyi was thinking. At this moment, he and Jiang Xingyi each activated the power of the sacred body of the ancients and the innate fetus of the way. The two merged and began to refine the divine fetus. The vast energy of the divine fetus began to be refined and absorbed by them. A dazzling cocoon of energy enveloped the two of them. Vaguely, not only did the two of them merge their powers, but even the power of their primordial spirits began to merge. The power of the innate fetus of the way began to spread in Jun Xiaoyao's body. The power of the sacred body of the ancients also spread in Jiang Xingyi's body. The two bodies overlapped, causing the energy of the divine fetus to be released several times more. Lines of the great path began to vibrate on the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body. The embryonic form of divine qi spread. It was pale blue, like the heavens. In Jun Xiaoyao's chest, the supreme bone was shining, and the power of the heavens was circulating. With the support of the divine fetus, the pale blue embryonic form of divine qi quickly condensed into a real divine qi. The heavens' divine qi. This divine qi was the manifestation of the first abhina of Jun Xiaoyao's supreme bone, the power of the heavens. As a result, Jun Xiaoyao's three supreme bone abhinas all had corresponding divine qi. The heavens' divine qi, the reincarnation divine qi, and the sin divine qi. At the same time, another divine qi appeared on the surface of Jiang Xingyi's body. It was a Tao that she had comprehended. However, the cultivation was far from over. The power of the divine fetus was not limited to this. The embryonic form of divine qi began to condense on the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body again. It was a pitch-black divine qi. It was like a black hole abyss, and it emitted a heart-palpitating devouring power. It was the manifestation of Jun Xiaoyao's god-devouring demonic technique. Devouring divine qi. At the same time, Jiang Xingyi also condensed another divine qi. It could be said that no other genius could condense divine qi as fast as Jun Xiaoyao and Jiang Xingyi. After that, time continued to pass. On the surface of Zhun Xiaoyao's body, another divine qi appeared. This divine qi was like the intertwining of the Great Path's rules, and it carried the true meaning of the Great Path. This divine qi is. Zhun Xiaoyao was very surprised. This was not a Tao that Zhun Xiaoyao had comprehended himself. He did not have this kind of energy in his body. Its sister Shengyi's Great Path divine qi. Zhun Xiaoyao was surprised and said to himself. This divine qi was the divine qi condensed by Jiang Shengyi's innate power of the Taoist fetus. At the same time, a divine qi also condensed on the surface of Jiang Shengyi's body. The divine qi was golden and mixed with a trace of blood qi. It was the divine qi condensed by Zhun Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancients when he cultivated the Physique book.